Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Pressing Forward podcast. And today I'm fortunate enough to have with me Kristin Zamichieli. She's a United States Marine and she travels for sunshine. So, Kristin, how you doing this evening?
I'm doing good. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. I'm glad that we finally got the opportunity to jump on and do this. We thoroughly spoke on the phone and you vetted me to ensure that it was the right way to, talk about your service and the journey that you're on now. And I'm, glad that we were able to do that. So after a long awaited couple of weeks, here we are, and I'm really fortunate that you're here with me to tell your story.
Yeah, I'm super grateful to be here, and I'm glad I can support your mission, and I appreciate the support that you've done for mine as well.
Yeah, we're gonna get into all that and talk about the cool shit that you're out there doing today and the way that that's gonna benefit a whole bunch of veterans, and I think it's something that no one's seen yet or been doing yet. So I think with you've got the right stuff to make it happen and change some lives. So should be cool to see that progress. But you kind of know we kind of went over this. We're gonna just talk about growing up, what life was like, and what kind of brought you into joining the Marine Corps. So why don't you go ahead and kick it off for us?
Yeah, life was so peachy keen for me growing up, and by that I mean it was a little rough. So I definitely grew up in an abusive household. My parents were not well off. They struggled for work, they struggled for money. Honestly, I grew up in a violent home, and you know, I was a smart kid, but um I felt like I couldn't like really figure it out. Like I don't feel like I came into life with like the life skills to really make it happen. And I was like this this is what it is, but I was pretty smart. So like in high school I like never really learned how to study. Like, I made sure I never got into really like too many honors classes so that I could kind of like skate through. And I didn't do a lot of homework. And by high school I was skipping like just enough school that I like didn't get in trouble. And then I went into college and that went terribly for me, to be honest. My first school I was kicked out of for fighting, right? No shocker.
Actually fighting, like you grabbed a girl by her hair and popped her in the face fighting, or are you guys like clawed at each other fighting?
I don't want this to be
It's
in
okay.
the podcast, but
Okay, fine. We don't need to talk about it. Don't fuck with
let's just
Kristen,
say there was
girls.
lawyers and police
Oh
and hospital
shit. Okay.
bills. Like it wasn't good. It
So
wasn't good.
it was like fighting. It was
I'm
like fighting inside the octagon without being in the octagon, kind of like
I'm
that.
smiling not because it's a good memory. I'm smiling pure out of nervousness. Like if I knew then what I knew now, and I made some poor life choices
Well,
growing
that
up.
shit, that's a tale as old as time. I think
Yeah.
everybody that not just people that served in the
I think I'm
military,
actually blushing.
Well, you're in Texas, so I think it's just a little warm. We'll go with that one.
Yeah. But I mean, like, I'm trying to gloss over a little bit of my childhood because it wasn't pretty, right? Like, I didn't have it figured out. I, I was really just struggling through life. I didn't have a career path. I wasn't good at school. I was getting in trouble. Like, I'm very fortunate. Like, my parents were terrible role models, to be honest, and quite frankly, I don't talk to either of them precisely for that reason. Um, but thank God for the people who like mentored me early on in my life. Like I have to give a shout out to like a lot of the mentors that I've had over the years. Like I'm just so fortunate. And I think mentorship's super important. Like I think we should always have people in our life who guide us. Like, we can't do it alone,
Well, who
but
can you
yeah.
can you tell me who one of the like who was one of those people, like a teacher or somebody that one of your employers, your family member, who was one of your mentors that was those guides for you at that point in your life?
So I think, when I was really young, when I got kicked out of school, to be honest, the people who took me in were the people that I babysat for. They they literally housed me because I didn't want to go home to my like abusive environment, and they were such positive influences in my life. And I'm so sorry, Aunt Carol, for not mentioning you first, but my aunt still to this day is pretty much like the only real mother figure I have in my life. And she has a whole huge family of her own, and she's been really influential for me. And another one of my early mentors actually was in school, was an ethics professor that I remember he was the first person to tell me that I was really smart, but I just like grew up poor, and that I was struggling in school because I was never taught the skills that I needed to be successful because I grew up poor. And he explained to me the socioeconomic system and how it intertwines with the education system, and why I needed to work harder than everybody else because I didn't come from money.
So
Um,
that was like a mindset that kind of got instilled in you from an early age, and it seems like from what you've told me, that kind of pays off. Like through a lesson like that you're gonna have to work hard no matter what. That seems like it carried on when you were put in some interesting situations during your time in service.
Well, not just that I have to work hard, right? Because hard work isn't the only thing. Like I at that point in my life, I had to work harder because I grew up poor, and I learned like in school, I learned different skills than people who are from affluent areas learned,
Right. Like
because
something
the
that their
education system
parents,
is not based, like it's not equal across the board. If you go to a good school, you learn this way, and if you go to a bad school or a poor school, like poor, financially poor, then you learn a different way. It just is what it is.
yeah.
And he was there was an aha moment for me in my life, because I remember like it started to shift this belief in myself that I actually was smart as these other people. I just needed to do some catching up.
Okay. Did you and what'd you do? How'd you do that catching up? Is it just studying harder, being there, spending more time at school? What?
So he was my ethics professor. So we had to read a lot of books, and his advice to me was to start highlighting all the words I didn't know and look them all up. So I still have a copy of one of my favorite books of all time, which is Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. And yeah, if you want me to go get it, I can show
No,
you.
that's just funny that's one of my I've got it like I've got so many different quotes highlighted in that book and so many different things that he says and like literal like bookmark pages in there, like I read that book at a point well, whatever, it's not about me. But yes,
Yeah.
great book, great book.
Well, you know what's in my book? It's not highlighted quotes, it's highlighted words of words I didn't know.
Right. No, I know, but I same
And
book.
so I've read that book, I don't know, 20 times. And then I at this point I usually read it on Audible, but when I pick the physical book up again, like I have to grieve for that old version of myself because of how poor my vocabulary was. Like I just really don't feel like I was equipped to have like the same life skills as everybody else. And that is what it is. And that was he is a profound person in my life, but you know, I still got kicked out of school for fighting. So
Yeah. Well, okay, so you get kicked out of school for fighting, and is this where, and I know you have two brothers, correct? You have two brothers
yeah,
as
two
well.
younger brothers.
Yeah. And you get kicked out of school for fighting, and one of them had already joined the Marine Corps, right?
Yeah, so my brother Jay joined the Marine Corps right out of high school. Um so yeah, that was right around the same time. Yeah, he lived with me very briefly. I had a summer house down the shore like in my college years. And he came to live with me, and then he shipped off to boot camp. And I feel like I know where you're going with this, but this is pretty much how I ended up in the Marine Corps is, I had been kicked out of school. I had gone to community college. And it's funny because I struggled at this like like high end like private school that I was going to. I struggled to make grades. I go to community college, I get a 4.0. Then I end up at, you know, a state school trying to finish my degree. And then I go to my brother's Marine Corps boot camp, and I remember just like this feeling of awe as I watched them walk across the parade deck. To me, it was the most like beautiful thing I had ever seen in my life. Like, I hate to be so cheesy about the Marine Corps. I try not to be so motivated now, even though I was disgustingly motivated while I was in. But I just like it was profound to me that hundreds of people were walking across the parade deck completely in sync. Like, they all looked the same, they stepped the same, like their hands moved the same. Like, it was something that called my soul.
That's hard fucking
And
core right there. Something that called my soul. Yeah.
it did though. Like I wish I could pretend that I wasn't profoundly moved by that moment,
But
because
why,
like
why would you wish you could pretend that you'd be so profoundly moved by a moment like that? I think that when people come to see that, like moms and dads and brothers and sisters and whoever, they're in fucking awe when they see that. Like it's normal to feel that way. When people see that shit, you know, like I always like now looking back on it, we all make fun of those boots. We were all those boots that when we got done with boot camp, we were super motivated, dude. Like you're walking down to go to the bathroom at the fucking, you know, in and out, and you're pivoting as you're like going to walk to the
I know
bathroom
it's
and
so
shit.
bad.
Standing at parade rest when you're talking to the dude like at the gas station, you know? Um,
Because you don't know, because you're like so
yeah, but you
programmed.
know what?
You're like deathly afraid to step out of your house in sweatpants, like deathly afraid.
Dude, I
Like,
wear
you
a
will not
belt.
walk on the grass.
I wear a belt to this day because I think every time I put on a pair of pants and I don't have a belt, like my senior drill instructor
Is
is
gonna,
gonna come out of the bushes and karate chop my ass for
yeah.
not wearing a belt on my pants. I'm not kidding you. But yes, I'm sorry. They go. So you see this. That's a. I feel like you put it in a really elegant way, like a motivated S way, like just that you felt it in your soul that when you see this shit, you're like, okay, this is. And you go ahead. I'm sorry. Finish it. Finish it up.
Yeah. So I remember coming home from that trip, and um you'll see this trend throughout my personality and my life progression. But at that point, I did my due diligence. I talked to every branch's recruiter. Like, I knew at that point, I knew the military was the next step for me. Like, it was what made sense. I couldn't figure out school. School wasn't for me. Like, I didn't get it, you know? Like, I tried three different schools. I tried like four different majors. Like, you know, I did sports medicine for 2 years. I was pre-med for a semester. I like was education for like 6 weeks, and then like went into anthropology, which I actually love, but like what was I gonna do with that? Um, no shade to my anthropologists out there. I just wish I could be you someday. Um
So you go and talk to these other, you go and do your due diligence and you vet your recruiters. Tell me what it was about the recruiters that you went to, like Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marine Corps that you didn't like. Even the Marine Corps, what's something that you didn't like
Give
about
me
the
the
Marine Corps?
dirt on the recruiters.
Yeah, what was like through your trial and error process or your deductive reasoning or your pros and cons, what was it that led you to make that decision to the Marine Corps?
All right. So I'm gonna say this first, and then I'm gonna give you the dirt on the recruiters. I try to talk everybody out of joining the Marine Corps. I tell them they all should join the Air Force because they're gonna be better off in the long run. And when I went to talk to the Air Force recruiter, they didn't fucking show up. I'm sorry, I don't think are we allowed to curse on this? No.
You're a grown ass woman, and this is gonna be seen by other grown. When I go on the YouTube settings, I say it's not intended for children. So
All right.
you could be like an old school, and he's like, "Hey Max, put on your earmuffs," and you could say
Yeah,
whatever
yeah.
you want, you know?
All right. Well, so yeah, when I scheduled an appointment with the Air Force recruiter, he literally didn't show up. First of all, I went to the office like 3 times that were never there. And then I scheduled an appointment and he didn't show up. Eventually I talked to them, but it took so much effort for me to literally just connect with this dude that I was like, fuck him. Like, this is like, you know, hey Joe, like I don't
Yeah,
Oh no.
quite unprofessional. Like I was, 18 minutes late this evening. So,
No, no, you're
yeah,
good.
yeah,
Um, but then I went to the army, and I think I'm gonna make these numbers up, but I feel like they were like, yeah, we'll give you $40,000 and you could join the army. But I was like, I really just didn't want to join the army. I knew that like kind of like the more ground pounding branches were the Marine Corps and the Army. And if I was gonna join one of those to be in the shit, like it wasn't gonna be in the Army. Like they just like reputationally, I'm sorry, didn't
yeah.
against me.
Which is
Uh
unfortunate. I mean, I know some hard-hitting army dudes out there, that's for
I do
sure.
too. And like Army Special Forces, like they get it. Like, I mean, Army does get it. Anyways, I went to the Navy and they were like, oh, well, with your ASVAB score, you should be a nuclear something something, which I was like, wait, so I get to work on nukes and on submarines? That sounds awful to me.
Anybody that's down to get on a submarine has some kind of, I don't know, I don't want to say it, just they're different people. You could not pay me enough. There's no amount of money. I would say, I'm sorry. There's no amount of money.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, I wanted to be a Marine. So I was more just like checking the boxes. So I could be like, yeah, I talked to them. That was a no. Yeah, I talked to them. That was a no. Yeah, I talked to them. That was a no. It
Yeah.
was really just checks in the boxes for me so that I could say that I was like well informed when I made my decision. And I don't know. I was late going in. I went in at 23. I don't know who is really all that well informed at 23. But
I
I
don't know.
felt I
You probably
was.
had it figured out a lot better than a 17-year-old kid from Elmhurst, Illinois did. That's for sure.
I
I
still
thought,
ended up in the same branch as you.
yeah, no, you're right. I remember shit in fifth grade. I knew I wanted to be a Marine. Then what solidified it was watching like shit like Ramadi and Fallujah. I remember seeing these dudes like shooting AT-4s off this rooftop and like coming up with the 240, and I was like just
That's
that's
it. That's what
who
I
way
want.
yeah, and they were like I was looking at every video, it was like US Marines and whatever city in Iraq it was, and I was like the U that's it, that's where I'm going, the Marine Corps.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, so I ended up in the Marine Corps. I mean, the other decision point for me that went into I mean, I knew I wanted to join the Marine Corps, but went into choosing my job is I started researching like which jobs in the Marine Corps could you get out and make six figures? Because at the end of the day, like the Marine Corps for me, like I wanted it to be like a stepping stone, like in replacement of college, because like I just couldn't figure out college. And so like one of the jobs I decided I wanted was ATC, air traffic control. Because I knew that air traffic controllers like started at six figures, like 80, 90, 100, 120K. And I was like, that's it. That's what I want. Like, I want to make money when I get out, you know? So I knew I wanted to be ATC, and newsflash, the recruiter lied. But I fought the recruiter and he kept telling me like the
Wait, did you
job
fight
code
the recruiter the same way that you fought that girl in college?
no, no, no. I just like wrote letters and was
Okay.
like, I want to talk to your chain of command, and did all the things that spouses normally do. Um, sorry, spouses, I love you. But yeah, no, he told me my job code wasn't available, and I was like, well, I'm not gonna join then, you know. And he's like, you already depped in, you have to, blah blah blah. I ended up like talking to Harrisburg, like, and I was like, well, this is the job I want, and either you have it or you don't. And I know that legally you have to let me out of my like DEP contract. Like, I was 23, I wasn't 17 or 18. So like I read the fine print, you know. I also went in as an E3 because I had college credit. So I started way ahead of the game, just like getting in, you
Yeah.
know. And I remember, well, so we'll talk a little bit about MCT. I remember getting told what I did, and they told me I was going to do UAVs. And, you know, you don't ask any questions. You just say, like, thank you and move on, you know, like, aye, Sergeant, thank you, have a good day. Like, you just, okay. And I remember walking away like, what the fuck is a UAV? Like, I have no idea what that is.
Yeah.
What does that even stand for? Like, the where am I going? I was supposed to go to Whiting Field. What's a UAV? Like, I had no idea what my job was. I was like, I just got assigned. Like, I might as well have been told I was going to space. Like, I had
Yeah,
no
no
idea.
idea. Well,
No idea.
let's take a quick step back because I want to hear about the way that, you know, boot camp had kind of shaped and molded you towards the mindset that you had at that time. Because when we talked about it, like you going through that and, emerging out the fire with the sword on the other side and slaying the dragon.
At the top
Uh,
of the Grand Canyon in my
yeah,
dress blues.
Yep.
Yep.
We kind of
Totally did that.
I want to hear about your take on Marine Corps boot camp because I really like, I told you this. I really have not interacted with very many females, especially Marines. So, hearing your side of it, I think that'd be an interesting take for some people that may not know what that was like for you.
Yeah, so I have an interesting experience with boot camp because I was there for like 5 or so, maybe more months. Um, so all female Marines go to Paris Island. None of us are Hollywood Marines. We all are intimately get to know the sand fleas that are, existing in Paris Island, in formation and whatever else. Um, 4th Battalion is separate from others. I'm trying to remember, I don't think we saw any males, which I know is different than some of the other branches. Like
They keep you guys
maybe
completely segregated throughout like pretty much all your training.
none of our like when I went through, none of our training was combined, like zero training. I'm
Well,
trying to
and like I'm
remember
saying,
if
like in
like
pat, like you guys obviously like would pass each other or no? Like you guys are completely, because I have no idea. I have no because I was a Hollywood Marine.
okay, so there wasn't even like women on your base.
No.
Um I feel like there might have been times we could have passed each other, but I sure as shit did not look
Yeah,
around.
that's not probably something that you're not even thinking about at the time.
Well, I mean, yeah, like I'm trying to remember if I could even recall like the faint echo of a male's voice in the distance and like not really. Yeah, so our training was completely segregated. Like 4th Battalion has their own barracks, they have their own chow hall, like we're not even on the range together. Like we don't see men. The only time I could imagine, at least when I went through, that a woman would see a man see be in the same proximity is we were passing each other, but I feel like they just kept us super separate. So I was shocked and a little appalled when I found out that the Army like does training co-ed. I was like, I don't understand. Like,
yeah, I never.
um, because the Marine Corps just kept things so separate. But Marine Corps boot camp for a female, I was in actually 2 different companies, which is really interesting. Like, I don't know if you recall like getting out of boot camp and there's a little bit of like rivalry between battalions about like who's harder, who's better, or whatever. No.
No,
Okay. Well,
I never.
I'm giving some dirt then. In 4th Battalion, the women's battalion, there's a little bit of dirt about like Papa Company's Princess Company and like Oscar's like the tougher company and
So within the battalion through okay, so inner battalion with the different companies, yeah, obviously there's shit talk between the different companies. I thought you meant like the between like like first battalion's like fuck you, second battalion or third recruit training battalion. I don't know. But
yeah,
yeah,
I
definitely
don't know.
inner company or like company to company. Yes, there's beef. Like
Okay.
we yell louder in India company. You're like I
Okay.
understand. Like
Yeah. Well, I mean, women only have one battalion. We're fourth, so I didn't know. I didn't know if there was rivalry on the guy side, but there's
Oh, come on, dude. Yes, of course.
there's definitely
Yes.
rivalry on the girl side too. Like we're definitely like, and I can tell you because I was in 2 different battalions that they are different.
Yeah. Okay.
Um,
Well, let's why now what was the reason behind you getting shifted to a different company and you were in boot camp for like 5 months?
so I broke both my hips in boot camp. And at the ripe old age of 23, I had to learn how to walk again. on Paris Island. I had the opportunity to go home, and I chose to stay because I really wanted that EGA. And I didn't want to leave until I had it. So, I broke both my hips. Like your hips, your pelvis bones, they like look like this on either side. Like when I saw the X-rays, it looked like spider webs. So they weren't complete fractures, luckily, but both of my hip bones just had like spider webs through the bones. Um, my right hip was so bad that I could not pick my leg up off the floor. Like I could no longer walk. And the criteria for, I remember like I begged not to be dropped. Like I was still running 3 miles in like 24 minutes with two broken hips. Like I was still like passing PT tests. So
Yeah.
I begged them not to drop me. But I couldn't pick my leg up off the floor. Um, so I got dropped. I got put in med hold platoon.
Well, there's
Um,
a reason why, and you told me that there was kind of a reason why behind the fact of what happened, and it was kind of correlated to the gear that you're using. You want to tell me about? We'll tell the listeners about that.
yeah, it's a really common injury for female Marines to have hip injuries or to break their hips. And one of the major contributors is that like we do all these hikes, wait, like with weighted gear for however many clicks, whatever. Everybody does that, male or female. And and so we're carrying these loaded packs, and the packs are meant for men's bodies. They're not meant for women's bodies. And men and women need to just distribute the weight differently. And like our hips are different than yours. So like where the packs actually put weight on our hips puts so much stress on the bones that they break. Um, and like this is a trend that carried through my enlistment is, like the gear is all like tested and bought for men. My first uniforms I would was issued were men's. My boots were men's. Like I wore men's clothing for 5 years. If I wanted female clothing, I had to go buy it. And I say clothing, but I mean uniforms.
Right.
Like
Yeah. Right. Right.
my dress uniforms were issued in women's because women and men wear different dress uniforms, but my camis were men's camis, my boots were men's boots, my pack, like there's one pack, like they're not out there studying like how weight distribution is on a female. Like it's the Marine Corps. When I was in the Marine Corps, 6% of the Marine Corps was female. 6%. So why would they even bother with studies on like how this is
Right.
impacting a woman's body?
Yep, and on top of that too, a lot of the females, and I know that integration has started to take place more. Like when are females really in that combat arms position? There are plenty of women that have done that in all through OIF and OEF, but like you said, with those small numbers, where is the pros and the cons to the money that's spent for, a specific plate carrier, a specific pack for a female that more than likely
We'll never
is
use it.
not going to be using it in the way that like a regular, like a grunt or
Right.
whatever would. Um,
Yeah. But this, like Marines train whether they go or not,
yeah,
right?
you're
Like
right. You're right.
and I would honestly say that's probably one of the things that a little bit differentiates us from the other branches is like I know you feel a type of way about this saying, but like every Marine's a rifleman. Like, when I learned that other branches don't qual on weapons every year, I was like, I don't understand. Like to me, I was like, oh, I don't do shit. Like I qual once a year, but I'm not in O3. I'm not out there shooting every day. Like, but so I felt like as a Marine, like I wasn't even like that was whatever. But then to find out other branches don't even do that, I was just like, I don't understand.
Yeah, that's it, it's hard to maintain. It's like definitely a perishable skill in maintaining competency when you're only doing it once a year, but doing it once a year, and then I'm sure that there's other, training evolutions or whatever that's integrated in there. It may not be live fire and like whatever, but maintaining, like kind of sharpening the tip of the spear, however dull it may be, regardless.
Yeah.
is an important thing to do, because time has told this, and history and previous battles and conflicts, that women have had to grab a rifle and get after it, and it's happened plenty of times in Iraq and Afghanistan as well. What was that like when, you've got this experience in boot camp? It's got to be pretty detrimental to hear that you've got these like broken hips, and they want to, they give you the opportunity to go home. You decide that you're going to stay and continue kicking ass, and you got to learn how to fucking walk again. Can you walk us through that and, kind of give us what's going through your head? And are there people there supporting you and uplifting you, or are they kind of just like, why don't you just fucking go home?
No, so I mean I went to Med Hope platoon, and anybody in Med Hope platoon was they had more than likely been given the opportunity to go home and hadn't. And we were all there to get better. And there was a few people who just like wanted to get out. Like I'm sure you remember that from boot camp. There's like the one or two that you're just like, why did you even come here? Like you are
Yep.
clearly just trying to get out. Like you've been here a week. like um but no, I definitely had other women who were on like a medical hold who were helping me. I remember like the criteria for getting out of med hold was that I had to be able to walk without a limp and I had to be able to pass a PFT. Those are the two criteria. And I already knew I could pass a PFT because I could pass a PFT with two broken hips. Like running was easier than walking because once you kind of get going, your legs just like they keep going, It's like getting my leg off the ground, like walking normally, marching, like that was difficult for me. So yeah, I had these women in med hold platoon and I would practice walking. Like as soon as I was off of immediate bed rest and was allowed to like be on crutches, I was trying to walk without a limp and I faked it. I literally faked learning how to walk. Like I had women in boot camp in the med hold platoon and I would be like, am I walking without a limp now? No. Okay, how about now? No. Okay, how about now? Every day until I could walk without a limp. Like, and it wasn't because it didn't hurt. It was because I just wanted to get back into training.
Yeah.
Like, that's how bad I wanted it.
That's more, I mean, I know guys that were at boot camp that said that they had like fucking they got migraines. Like, oh, I got like constant migraines, or like whatever was the worst bitchiest excuse to get out of it. And then here you are over here, both broken hips, and you're relearning to walk again just so you can get back into training. Like it shows like you're that fire that you've got, that you want to do this. So,
yeah.
you obviously you get back to this point. You pass your PFT, you show that you can walk without a limp. You go through boot camp. You're integrated into a new company now, obviously. And when do you end up graduating from Marine Corps boot camp?
September 2007.
Okay, September of 2007. Now, before that graduation, was there a point that you thought that like hip injury that you had was going to hinder you from graduating? Like, did you just powered through once you got
I
out of
knew.
the? All right, hell yeah.
No,
So
I wanted it so badly. Like when I tell you I was in so much pain and I didn't care, like I knew that I knew that I was gonna learn how to walk with pain. Fast forward, you know, 17 years later, maybe not the brightest idea that I've ever had, but it was good at the time,
yeah,
you know?
well, I mean, you had a goal in mind, and no matter what, like I think mentally you're able to push yourself past some physical barriers to a certain extent, obviously. And you did that, so that just shows some I don't know
Yeah.
what I don't even know the right word. I was gonna say you got some big old balls, but some people
I have
some
big
people
ovaries,
yeah,
actually.
there you go. You
My
got some
balls
big
are on the
ovaries.
inside.
Yeah. Um Giant bull ovaries on the inside.
Yeah, I have big, big,
There you
big
go.
ass ovaries.
So you obviously get this done. What's that feeling like when you finally get that EGA that you've been pushing for?
I thought I was invincible.
Yeah, fuck yeah.
Did you feel like that after you got
I mean,
out?
I remember my senior drill instructor, because I was like a little shit, but I remember like but I was still a good Marine, you're a good recruit, whatever. I was an excellent PT and whatever. They all ask you like, oh, I was like super motivated about obviously going to be infantry and shit. But I remember my senior drill instructor was the one who gave me my EGA, and he was like, you did good, Giuliano. He's like, you're gonna be one hell of a Marine. And I was just like, I didn't like get teary-eyed or nothing, dude. I had the biggest fucking smile on my face, and I was like, yes, like fuck yeah, this is it. Yeah,
This is it.
I
I
felt on
had
top
that
of the
thing be like,
world.
this is it.
Yeah.
This is the moment I have been
Like
waiting
they're
for.
like, dude, give me on fucking Iwo Jima. I'm planting that
I'm
flag.
going.
Like
Yeah.
that's the mindset, and obviously you've from the things that we've talked about already, you definitely had that fire in you, hence why you got through it. So,
Yeah. Well, so
um,
I'm going to tell you a little story about something I experienced in boot camp, and I tell this probably won't meet a lot. Like I know majority of your audience is like Marines, but if anyone watches this who's like not prior military, I can tell you that the thing that I learned in boot camp is that our bodies are so much more capable than we think they are, and that we should never let fear stop us. And those are two lessons I learned incidentally on the confidence course. I remember coming up to like a 10-foot wall, right? And there was a rope hanging down off of it, and I didn't have a lot of upper body strength. I sucked at climbing a rope. Like I got my ass hazed every time there was anything to do with climbing a rope. Like I just didn't have a lot of upper body strength, and I was scared of heights. Like I'm still scared of heights. But anyway, I remember coming up to the bottom of this 10-foot wall, and my drill instructor was there, which means I didn't have a choice. There was only one way forward, and that was up. And I knew with every fiber of my being that I was never making it over this wall. I just knew it. Like I wasn't like I just like in my head I wasn't strong, like, but what was I going to do? My drill instructor's literally screaming in my face. And I started climbing this rope. After a while, you can only go so far. You have to put your feet on the wall. You're climbing the rope. And I remember thinking, like, this is the day I die. Like, my arms are going to give out because I'm so weak, and I'm going to break my neck. And that's it. This is the end of Marine Corps boot camp. This is the end of my life. Like, I'm literally just going to die. Like, my body's going to just completely give out and fail, and that's it. But your Marine Corps drill instructor is there. So you're and you're just like, okay, like, I don't fucking know. Like, I don't have a choice. I'm just going to do this. And when I remember, I literally to this day can remember getting to the top of the wall and like throwing a leg over and being partially upside down, thinking, what the fuck do I do now? But I'm on the top of this wall and I have a leg over, so I think I can at least get on top of it. And then I was like, holy shit, I'm up. And then I was like, how the fuck do I get down? And I was like, down is the easy part, because as long as I like can hang on to the rope for a minute, like it's not that far of a fall, right? But I will never forget the confidence course, and I can't believe it's named that. It's so funny because I literally have never been so sure in my life that I could not do something, and my body showed me that it could. I've never like I just remember the immense amount of fear, and like in my brain, the next step was death. like I was just
well,
gonna fall.
yeah, but it's like in that moment, I obviously your body was able to do it, but your mind, you get in that fight or flight mode, and in that sense, you chose to fight, and obviously your drill instructor yelling at you, the things that you can push yourself past, are quite, unbelievable. I've seen some, feats of strength and, like just pushing your body to the limit to do something, and it's pretty crazy.
Yeah. But
But
every Marine goes through that, right?
yeah,
Every Marine goes through that. And it's a lesson that I literally carry into the shit that I do today. Like some of the traveling that I do, and like some of the risks that I take in my day to day, like they come from a lesson I learned that day, which is never let fear stop you. Like, it's okay to be afraid, do it anyway.
Do you have a now that you accomplished this and like you take that day to day, do you have like a rope that goes from your balcony that you like climb up every single day, reminding yourself that I can still do this?
Mentally, yes.
All right,
Mental
good.
health is a bitch. So
Yeah.
mentally, yes, sometimes I do.
Hell yeah. Um, so you get to this point, you're over the top, in the sense of getting that EGA, and I think that's a good follow on, like a but you make it to this point now. You've accomplished this, you've got your EGA, you get sent to MCT. You kind of gave us a brief overview of the way like become knowing that you're going to be flying UAVs. But before, like you're going to do stuff with UAVs, you don't know you're going to be flying them yet.
Yeah, I
What,
don't even know what a UAV
yeah,
is. You
what,
tell me
what
that.
is,
Oh my God, I'm like, great.
what is MCT like for you? Like when you get to do a little bit of that rifleman oriented stuff, are you enjoying this, or are you like, this is not what I should be doing?
I actually loved MCT. Um, it was also our first training opportunity where we were co-ed.
Okay. I didn't know. Yeah,
And
because obviously on the West Coast, like it's all dudes, it's
yeah,
all
because there's
guys.
not women out there. So MCT on the East Coast is co-ed. So it was our first time doing any type of training. Like after Marine Corps boot camp, I went home for 10 days. I did recruiting duties, so it extended a little longer. And then yeah, I dropped an MCT. It's co-ed. It's really interesting. Like I loved MCT. I found it really enjoyable, and still to this day, like I prefer like any type of like tactical, practical application type of thing. Like with guns, I always prefer like something where I'm moving around. Like
Like
I
you're
don't like
kitted up
target
and you're
shooting.
and you're just like sitting there like transitioning targets and
Yeah, I
whatever.
would rather shoot trap than shoot a target any day.
Yeah.
Um,
It gives you a little something that, mentally and you're engaging more. It's not just
yeah,
shooting at a stable target. You see people like 5 meters, 10 meters away and they're like dumping them. Whatever. Mag dump's good here and there. You can get
I
some
guess.
stress
Like, I
relief.
mean, it's good to like remind yourself how the weapon works and like for accuracy, I guess. But like, yeah, I want to be doing something. So MCT was really good. But I will tell you this about MCT. It was the first of many don't be a slut talks that I got in the Marine Corps.
And and
And
and you got that right as you get there, did they sit down, the women individually, or is this something that they're saying generally
to
like
everybody.
to everybody? Okay, so
Yeah.
but is this a known thing? So I have to ask, is this like a known thing that like students or whatever that they're like hooking up and doing all this shit in the squad bays or obviously that's why they say it, but I have to ask because again, I think myself and a lot of guys that weren't ever in this position, they don't understand. So you gotta like why they say that shit to you.
So it's hard to say. It's hard to say whether or not it happened or they told us that it happened. Like we're still in the mind fuckery of the Marine Corps, right? Where you're in training, so you don't quite know what's going on. But yeah, we'd be told like, oh, so and so got caught hooking up in the porta potty, which is like,
Hell yeah,
excuse me?
dude. Dude, well,
um,
come on, just close the lid and you're good to go. That's
Ugh, no, why? But yeah, I mean, we were warned. We were warned against it. But actually, you know what? That wasn't even the first "Don't Be a Slut" talk we got. We started getting them in boot camp, actually.
no shit. That like so that was something that they started drilling into your head to like from the get-go.
Yeah, 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 yeah. It was made pretty clear that, like, yeah, yeah, don't be a slut. Like I remember my drill instructors like just like dogging on women who would get into the fleet and you know just like not put effort forth and blah blah blah, and they didn't want us to be that, right? So I think like the message was probably delivered poorly, much like most of the Marine Corps messages, especially in boot camp, MCT, and like when you're boot. But I think what they wanted as like really successful like women in the Marine Corps is like they didn't want women who got into the fleet and like didn't pull their own and just like slept around and disrupted like
The
unit
environment, yeah,
cohesiveness,
yeah, everything. Yeah.
right? Um and I saw that in the fleet. Like, so as shitty as it is that like we started getting these talks, like I also saw in the fleet women who didn't pull their own and couldn't pass a PT test and
Okay,
always
we'll
had
we'll
something
we'll get we'll
wrong.
get we'll get to that because I want you to go a little more in depth at that because that obviously, plays into the different characteristics or the different work ethic and the different ways that you can progress yourself through the ranks, if you will. But let's finish up MCT with so one of the first things they're telling you guys is like, don't be a slut, don't be out there like sleeping in around and fucking in porta potties and stuff. So that was. Is this something that's reiterated? Is this something that's reiterated throughout training, or is it like a one-time thing, and then you guys are focused on, doing the mission of MCT?
No, I think it was, it was mentioned a few times, and then I feel like we were mainly focused on doing the mission of MCT and like being combat trained.
Okay, so you guys get to do like obviously like patrolling and like live fire ranges, or you got to shoot all the,
All the
weapon
guns.
systems. Nice.
Yeah.
Is there something in particular that you enjoyed more than everything else?
I love shooting a Mark 19.
Okay.
And like the grenade launcher. Like that was,
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't get to do that in my like fleet experience. Like that wasn't part of my day to day, but that to me that was like super badass. Like those are like the Mark 19 is super powerful. Like I
Mark.
just like really liked being behind a powerful weapon.
Yeah, that's you got me beat there because that is the only crew serve weapon system that I've never fired as a Mark 19. So pretty unfortunate. And those that don't know, a Mark 19 is a belt-fed 40 millimeter grenade launcher. It is little cute little nuggets of death and destruction. It's a beautiful display. So Mark 19, yeah, Kristin
I don't
slaying it
think
on
we
the Mark
all fired
19.
fired it. I think
Yeah,
only a few of us did.
so you're one of the lucky ones that got. Did you get to shoot HE or was it Cheeto rounds?
Cheeto for sure.
Okay, yeah, but still, I
Yeah.
mean, it's still just being able to get behind the weapon system and know that you've got that capability in your hands is pretty freaking sweet. Um, did you excel throughout like your combat training in MCT?
I feel like I was like just above average, to be honest.
And
Like,
so is that a whole encompassing thing of kind of falling in at this point, it's all new stuff to you and are you, physically you're keeping up or is it you're with the gear or I'm just trying to figure out on why you think that you're average compared to everyone else.
well, so I would say, I was definitely keeping up. Uh, but I wasn't a squad leader. I wasn't the
Okay.
guy. I was just like, I was like middle of the road, slightly above average. Like, um,
Yeah, not everybody, and that's not. I mean, I wasn't in ITB. I was not a squad leader, and like I was the same kind of way. Like I put out. I was able to do what I needed to do, and I didn't like excel at this point, and I wasn't a failure. So I kind of just blended in and did what I would needed to do throughout that training period.
which honestly was the way.
Oh, for sure. I
know?
mean, if you look at it, being a squad leader, it all has its way of working out, and you can see the people that are designed for those leadership positions. And then there's other people that need to be molded into those leadership positions through experience. Maybe they had like ROTC or like a parent that was in the Marine Corps or whatever it may be. But knowing your path, like at this point in time, like you're kind of middle of the pack, but that changes throughout your career. So onto you getting notification now that you're going to be going to this MOS that's UAVs and you have no idea what they're talking about. So let's take it from there.
So I originally got told I was going to Whiting Field, in Florida, and I did not go there. I went to Fort Huachuca, Arizona, which is an Army intel base. It's about an hour south of Tucson. And so yeah, I went there and there was quite a bit of wait time to class up. Um, when I got there, I was one of four females, and the way the barracks was divided, there were like on the in the Marine Corps barracks, it was like one floor, and there was like it was like this, like a little part of a triangle, and there was one hallway that was full of men, and then there was another hallway, and there was two rooms that were full, and that was of women. And then down the way end were people who had like transferred into the MOS, so that it was like, there was probably like two or three sergeants down the end of the hallway. But there was four women in my MOS school. So
Four women
um
out of how many people? I
I
don't know,
guess our debt was like, I don't know,
40, 50.
I would say 30 or 40. Like
Okay.
we were pretty small. Um
So you guys are clearly you guys are like 1% of the
yeah.
popular, or 4% of the or 10%. I'm sorry. Jeez, why is math so bad for me right now? If you got 40 people, you guys are four, that's 10%. Um
Yeah.
so
Yeah,
you
the
guys,
UAV small school was pretty small.
yeah, and you told me some interesting stories about that, and this is like, would you say that this is your first introduction to the disconnect or divide between like male and female service members?
I mean, I didn't know, like I had no baseline for what was like normal, not normal. Like I don't know, like boot camp was totally segregated, MCT was together. Now I'm in school, like boys have their own room, girls have their own room. Like I don't know, it seemed normal that we were separated. Like it seemed normal that I was just like rooming with a girl. And I guess I was a little surprised that there was not very many women, but I don't know, it was all just so new.
Well, no, I'm talking about in the terms of, people saying shit to you, or you obviously you guys had some army people on the base as well, and some of the looks that you would get or the things people would say. So that was is this like your first introduction into that side of things?
Yeah, this is also my first introduction to like trying to exist in an environment where I'm actually a Marine, right? Because training is training, and like I guess yes, I was a Marine in MCT, but it's still training. It just like felt like boot camp plus,
Right.
right?
So yeah, and obviously now, like after you finished MCT, like you're onto your like your school, so you're fully like classed in, if you will, in the sense of the things that you
Yeah.
need to do to be a basic Marine. Now you're going on to your advanced or like your follow-on school for your job title.
Yeah, and I was in E3 at this point. So, um yeah, I was on an army base. It was an army intel base. I have to admit that the Marines were a little bit of bullies in my MOS school. When I did get classed up, I remember like the Marine, like we had to take the bus. I feel like it was like a 30-minute bus ride up to like the flight line up in the mountains of Fort Huachuca. Um, and like the Marines, we all sat in the back of the bus because we were the coolest kids, and we wouldn't let the army sit with us. And I don't know, like it was just like I feel like it was just like in the culture, in the air, in the water. Like we just had beef with the army. Like interbranch rivalry started for me like really early in my career because I went to an army school, and like outside of the UAV operators, like the rest of the branch was intel, and we just thought we were hot shit, and like most of them were just like punks, and they were kind of like easily scared, and we were Marines, and we all thought we were badass, and we like wouldn't let the army sit with us on the bus. And it was kind of like known that like these are our seats, and like no one would sit back there until we got on. And every now and then there'd be like somebody who would like try to be tough or didn't know, and we would set them straight real fast, to include me. Like, I definitely have
Like you
told,
see these crossed rifles,
yeah,
Lance
up there,
Corporal.
yeah, up, you can go sit up there, like this is my seat. And like I feel like I remember people just like if an army dude was like sitting in the back of the bus and we still needed more seats, like we would just like pick a motherfucker up and like move him. Like you cannot sit here. You can't sit with us was so hard. Like I just like, and it's like dumb shit like that, but like we just like, and I don't think I'm alone in this, but like Marines, we just always think we're better. Like,
Yeah, that's well, and you know, that's one of the things that you and I had talked about too, with the sense of like during our time while we're in, we take pride in being like the best of the best of the best, sir. Um, and now after we've gotten out, and these will be things obviously we've talked about already, but understanding that we all have like a collective purpose, and now after those some of those rivalries are still, like you hold them true, but now you're not like, Rosa Parksing the kid, or
literally.
Forrest Gumping the kid, Sage Tyken, um, you know,
I'm not pulling like I'm not like grabbing any army dudes by the collars and getting off the bus because he called me ugly, and I'm like, what the did you just say? First sergeant's coming out of his office, like a sergeant's calling us in. Like there's none of that anymore with the
yeah.
interband rivalry, but there was some of that when I was in. Like I was, I grew up in a place where violence was pretty normal. Like I grew up where like fighting in the neighborhood was cool. And then I went right into the Marine Corps, which, if you had beef with somebody and you needed to fight it out, you did. Like,
Yeah, dude, female Marines. I mean, you started, Marines in general, but I've seen some videos on, some of those websites or pages or whatever, and there's like some female Marines getting down, they're beating the shit out of each other. So,
well,
um,
so honestly, I never had any physical altercations with another female Marine ever.
but would you
Never.
guys get like in each other's faces and, getting riled up at all?
No.
Really? That's surprising.
Mm-mm.
I figured that there would be some legit tension, between some of you guys.
I mean, tension, yes. Like, were there people who didn't like each other? Yes. Like, did shit go down and like we had something to say about it? Yes. Like, but like, no, I don't, for the most part, like my beef was always with men. It was never with women.
Okay. So what it
Honestly, men treated me way worse in the Marine Corps than any woman ever did.
Damn. All right. Well, I'm sure we'll get into that and some of those stories. So now you're in school. You got to beat up a couple army kids and take them out of your seat on the bus. Um, you know that you're obviously a UAV operator now. What kind of mindset do you have when you figure out what it is that you're going to be doing in the Marine Corps?
Well, so I feel like I was in a really like unique position because when I checked into my unit in 29 Palms, it didn't exist yet. So there was a lot of setup that needed to be done. I think there was less than 50 of us like in the entire unit. Like I'm trying to remember, we had a sergeant major, we had an XO, we didn't have a CO yet, we had no admin chief. Um we had an S3 chief, like we had an S4 chief, like there was just so few of us. And so I checked in as an E3 and my MOS was expanding rapidly. So because at one point when I got out of boot camp, only 2 units that did my job existed. And then I checked into the fleet into a third unit. So there was a whole third unit of billets opening up in my MOS, which meant that there was a whole lot of room for promotion. So my MOS promoted really quickly just based on pure numbers. We went from 2 units to 3, like percentage wise. That's a lot of billets that open up. So I checked in as an E3 and very quickly got promoted to E4. And I feel like I might have been one of the first female NCOs in my unit, but it was very small. But there wasn't a lot of females just in general in my unit, at least when I checked in. And so as I'm trying to figure out what my job is, like we weren't doing flight operations yet. Like we were literally just doing all of the administrative work to set up a unit. And like I remember printing out Marine Corps orders and putting them in a binder to put in the S1 office. Like I remember being there when our S1 chief checked in and like helping him get onboarded, you know, and I was a E3, E4, like, because there just wasn't many of us. I remember, I'll never forget, we did have a fro at this point. And she used to give me the like we only had we were literally our entire unit existed in a trailer, and we probably had like 5 computers in the building, and I was in ops, and I was always trying to help with like ops work, and put together SOPs or whatever I was doing, do like flight training stuff, just like general paperwork that has to do with ops. And my fro, she would give me the like wink wink nod nod that she was about to like get up and go to lunch or get up and do something. And after her secret single, I would just like jump on her computer, because it was like first come first serve on the computers. If you had work to do, like part of what it was there was limited computers. You had to wait in line for your turn to like get your work done, which was
That's
like,
fucking crazy. Yeah, like
yeah, it's
talk
so
about
funny.
not
Like,
allocating the proper resources to be able to do shit. And you see, we bitch about gear and stuff like that, but here you are, a fucking, a boot ass corporal or lance corporal, and been in the Marine Corps for what, maybe a year and a half at this point or something like that. Um, am I
not even
wrong?
that
Not
long.
even that
Yeah.
long. Yeah, maybe a year. I don't know how long you're at. I just assumed your school was like 6 months or
Yeah,
whatever.
it was.
Um,
Yeah.
but so at this point, yeah, you're like a fucking year in the Marine Corps. You're, taking on some responsibility, and you've got to like make do with setting up this unit. And we're over here bitching about like, and it is a valid complaint, but having a saw that's a piece of shit, and like your gear is fucked up, or you got some like shit from SIF that's, completely trashed, or, you
Oh, that, I
whatever.
mean, that was there too, right? Like once our unit got gear, the gear was shit. Like, but we, at this point, when I first checked in, like we didn't have anything. Like, with like literally the compound, like our offices, our hangars, like our hangars for our air maintenance team, our hangars for S4, like, our parking lot for our vehicles, like they didn't exist yet. They were being built. So all we had was this literally trailer. And if you weren't doing something inside, you had to sit outside. Like, I remember like the days, like if you talk to anybody who started VMU3, like the days of just like sitting outside in the smoke pit of just like having nothing to do and just like waiting to be told to
Oh God, that's
like.
so brutal. I mean, I can relate for sure on shit like that. You're just nothing to do. You've like but that sounds even worse because you guys have like nobody there. You're probably one of how many women were with you at this point?
I
The
think.
the fro.
Well, so actually there was a decent amount of women that were in the unit when I checked in. So one of them checked in pregnant. She checked in right before me. There was another woman there. I think there was 2 other women there who couldn't pass a PT. They were there before me, then me, and then the fro, right? So I'm checking into this unit, and most Marines don't have a high opinion of female Marines, right? And this is like you know baby unit. It's not even official yet. It wasn't even stood up. We were literally still building it. But the 3 women who came before me were pregnant, and 2 couldn't pass a PT test. So I get there, right, and it's just not looking good for the female Marines. And I remember running my first PFT in like 23 minutes, and like my chain of command being like, what's going on here? Not only can you pass a PT test, but like you can do it. And so they like put me in charge of PT immediately. And my crazy Marine Corps brain person that I was back then was like doing dumb shit, like starting PT at 5:15 in the morning and like running people around the base until I just got tired, and like running people up Sugar Cookie. If you've ever been to 29 Palms, like, you know what that is. It's terrible. But like I was the person that was like, yeah, do it again. Like, I remember one of the women who couldn't pass a PT test, like making the squad that I was running run circles around her. while she was running. Like I don't know who
You were
that person
savage. You were
was.
now, yeah, your hair might have been on fire at that point, like most corporals, they go around tearing shit up and
I was tearing
flipping
shit up.
flipping shit up. So you at this point, you come into a unit that's getting, just stood up. There's these billets that open up, you get promoted, you take a little responsibility under your own guys. I mean, this isn't like somebody's forcing you to do this, right? You see that this is a pitfall or like a hurdle for the women that are in your unit. And regardless of the way that you might implement some uh tactics in the sense of running around the shit bag that's falling out and making that, I mean, hey, I've got no there's we've done some interesting things that I don't need to talk about on so people can hear, but um yeah.
I'm not proud of it now, but I was damn sure proud of
Hey,
it
you know what? Yeah, and that's obviously all a part of growth too, but being somebody that has that drive to make the people around them better, that shows a lot, and obviously why you had, the career that you did. So you guys get the unit stood up eventually, right? It takes a little bit of time to build all these things up. What's the mindset, or I guess the mission statement behind the unit that you're with? Do you have a slated like deployment schedule, or do you guys just you're working through to get this shit set up and operational, and then what's after that?
the mission statement of my unit. Uh,
You don't have to recite. I'm just
I was
saying,
like, I
no,
think I
no, no, no,
remember
no. I'm
it.
not asking you to recite like a fucking 5 paragraph order about how you guys are gonna go push out from here and I'm saying the mindset and
Okay.
what you guys are overall, like your mission of what you're accomplishing. Where are you guys headed to, and what is it that you're trying to get done?
Yeah. So reconnaissance, surveillance, and target acquisition was our mission statement. But what we were really working towards is VMU 3 was the third VMU to be set up, which stands for Unmanned Aerial Vehicle something. But there was only two. And so previous to our unit, the two VMUs were rotating on and off. Like in country in Iraq at the time. And so it was I don't guess it was like 9 months on, 9 months off, or 6 months on, 6 months off. Like I don't know what their rotation was before VMU came into play. I think it was 9 and 9, but that was it. Like it was on and off. Like they always relieved each other. And so like the mission of the Marine Corps was to establish more VMUs so that these two units who were constantly deploying could get an actual break, right?
Right.
So that was really the mission of standing up VMU 3. And that's kind of like what I walked into by chance. And yeah, so that's what we were working towards. I think, as we were standing things up, like we knew that our goal was to get to full capacity so that we could get into the deployment rotation with the other VMUs. And in 29 Palms, there was VMU 1. So we knew, I mean, we knew them. We sometimes worked with them, and a lot of our like staff in that unit came from VMU 1 or VMU 2 to come help stand up that unit. And then there was, of course, like, fresh from boot camp Marines like me.
Yeah. No, I had just assumed that they had Corporal Zamichieli out there just setting the whole thing up with no previous experience
Oh,
whatsoever.
I mean,
But
a little bit.
yeah.
So
Uh,
sorry, not sorry.
no, no, no. You get
No.
that's
There was like all of the staff NCOs were there for every unit, but when I checked in, like the unit was just so small,
right.
and
Okay. I'll ask you this then. Like while you guys are like standing this unit up, you've got these senior enlisted and officers or whatever that have come over from these different units. Is there something like questions maybe that you guys are asking, or things that they're telling you about what the kind of stuff that you're doing overseas is? Or is this not really talked about yet?
no, I don't think we like really cared. I mean, I didn't care. I don't know if other people are asking that, but like,
Well, but you obviously had to know at, this point that these other units are deploying on this rotation schedule. So there is like the possibility or whatever that you guys are going to be involved in that as well, right?
oh yeah, we know. I mean, we know that that's our purpose, is to get into the
Okay.
deployment
Okay,
rotation.
got it. So how long does it take you guys to get this unit stood up?
Gosh, I don't know.
You don't know, like
Less than
a
a year.
okay, less than a year. So coming around to this point in time, it's probably what, like 2009 maybe, like
I feel like we became an official unit, and don't quote me on this, but I want to say like June, and then we deployed in October.
of '09.
Yes.
Okay, okay. So you've been in you've been in the Marine Corps for probably a little over 2 years or just around 2 years, yeah, because you were in September boot camp, September of '07, and here you are in October or whatever of '09. So yeah, a little over 2 years.
Yeah.
Okay. So a little over 2 years. Are you still a corporal at this point?
Yeah.
All right. So you're getting ready to go on your first deployment, but what has kind of led you up to this point in terms of like training? What is your, what's your position in the unit?
So I would say pre-deployment, I had done so in the ops department there was like ground training, so I did a little bit of that. There's operations and then there's future operations. Um I did a little bit of work with ground training, which has a lot to do with like, those dumbass whatever surveys, classes, that shit, right? Like PFT, like tracking PFTs, all that stuff
So
goes
like
into ground
the
training.
readiness level of like whatever
Yes.
whatever the fuck they call them, like all your Marine
Yep.
Net and your MOL classes and
Yeah, all of the
or
readiness,
not
operational
MOL.
readiness,
What's
all
the
of
fuck is
that
it?
is ground training. So
MCIs, yeah.
yep. So I did a little bit of ground training for a little while. And then I ended up in the future operations department, where I was doing a little bit of planning. But the other thing that's happening is like we're doing workups just like every other unit, right? So we're going out to, good old Camp Wilson, like the EAF, we called it, the flight line. Like on the other side of Camp Wilson, there's a flight line. And so we had our own flight line out there. So we were doing, field ops out at Camp Wilson. We're not really driving into the depths of the ranges in 29 Palms, but we are going out to Camp Wilson and we're doing flight ops from out there. There's other stuff that's going on that do involve going downrange, like I know, I would we had this like remote ground control station, and so we would have teams that would go out and take these ground control stations out to like the guys on the ground who, like a guy like you, for example, or like, but it's someone in your chain of command, like it's not you, right? Like it's one of your officers or something like that, like your lieutenant or whatever, and we're showing them this computer that has the UAV feed on it. So when like guys on the ground are making calls for fire, and like sometimes what's happening is a UAV comes in and spots the target
Hmm.
until air can like some other air cover can get on station, and drop bombs or lay fire or whatever. And
What's the
so
do you I do you know the name of that system? I cannot think of
the
it.
OSRVT is what I was bringing
But
out.
but there is I know, but it gives you like a live feed not only to the drone, but would yours, because I know there's one that does, I'm pretty sure the pilot's feed as well. I don't know if that was anything to do with your system or not, but I'm pretty sure our FAC, our forward air controller, and like they had it in like one of the MRAPs or something, and they were able to get on it and see the feed um, from the pilot's point of view, or it was the UAV. It might have been what you're talking about, but I never personally was the one operating that stuff or sitting behind there looking at it.
Yeah, so I can't speak to whatever equipment might have had like the pilot feed on it. Like I can only tell you that it was the OSRVT that had UAV feed on it. And that's who we were working with, like often like the FAC or someone like that, or like a lieutenant that calls in CAS or whatever like that. Like that's the person that I would meet when I would go out there. And I tell this story to employers, like uh you know people think someone in the military can just follow orders, and that like we can, but that's just not all we do. Like there's actually a lot of like leadership capabilities that a majority of the people who come out of the military have. And I give this example that, you know, in this OSRVT, like going and meeting up with a FAC or some lieutenant or whatever, like what my unit gives me is just a coordinate and a time and tells me to be there, right? And so because of like some of the positions that I was in the operations department, like I'm getting range clearance, I'm mapping out a route, like I'm pulling together a team, I'm getting permission from S4 to get a vehicle, a driver, a mechanic, you know, MREs, water, fuel, like all this stuff. But what I was given was a coordinate and a time, right? And so I figure everything out from there. But you know, I say that to remind like any veteran watching that like never underestimate the value of the things that you did in the Marine Corps, because a civilian could never do that. Like they
Yeah,
just couldn't.
well, I mean, not gonna lie to you. If I was, I mean, maybe because you're a little bit, you know, you're 23, 24 or whatever. But I don't know many Lance corporals or corporals that could facilitate that, to be honest with you. Um, you know, they're plenty good at facilitating, you know, call for fire, setting up a support by fire position and maneuvering a squad through range 400. But
Yeah,
you
but
know,
that
that
should like shouldn't be underestimated either.
yeah,
Like
oh no,
civilians can't do that shit either.
I know there's leadership capabilities that come from that, but you able to bring, and I'm sure if you gave somebody, you know, they could get it done. Um, it just shows the ability, like you said, that leadership capability of Marines, and for you to be a young, you know, Marine at this point in time, and you're able to go through and do that, and I'm sure that, you know, sit out with a map and a protractor and figuring out like where this 10-digit grid or 8-digit grid is that you've got to go meet up with some fucking infantry battalion or some, you know, guys doing cast or something, whatever it may be, but you're able to pull it off and you do it. That's pretty fucking astounding. Not gonna lie. I don't think that I would, you know, at that point in time be capable of collecting those resources and be like running around like a chicken with my fucking head cut off, to be honest with you. Um, but yeah,
And
so
doesn't
you
that describe your entire time in the Marine Corps?
yeah, you know, to a certain point, I think once you get your footing and you get to a point where you understand in the smallest sense of the way that things operate and especially how it goes, because once deployment life hits, like that's a completely different beast, you know, that you're worried about way less things in the sense of um the garrison lifestyle. You're focused on survival at that point. But um yeah, whatever. There's plenty of correlating things that come to it, and it's cool to see and hear you talk about it from a different perspective of having to do that. Um, you know, not many people at that point in their Marine Corps career are doing ops like that. Maybe you're assisting with it, but nobody's like, hey, here's a coordinate for where you're going to go drop off this multi-million-dollar system to some dudes out in the middle of the Mojave Desert in 29 Palms, California. You know, that's pretty wild. So you do shit like that. You're going out and you're getting these, you know, systems to the guys on the ground so they can observe the feed that, you know, the UAV has overhead. Um, is that something that your mission is for, the possibility of doing something like that in Afghanistan or you know, when you're on deployment, or is that just so you guys can get the equipment to them in training? I don't really know how that works. I'm not sure what that.
No, I think the purpose of that was more so that like when we are in country, you know what we're doing to support you and what we're actually seeing so that we can better communicate to one
Okay,
another.
okay, that's a good, yeah, that's a good ways.
Right? Because like, you know, your training, my training, like our units might work together, maybe they did work together, but like you don't know anything about what I do, and I, you know very little about what you do. And so I think that it was such a, at least for me, like I think it made me way better at my job, especially like when I was in country and when I was doing like some work as a mission commander. And I'm like, at this point, a lot of times I'm communicating with an intel person who's the intel person for a ground unit, and he's in contact with them and I'm in contact with him, and it's like we're playing relay to get what we
Yeah,
need
so
to
it's
look for the.
your fault that we're always out there looking for some fucking four-door white Toyota Corolla that's possibly putting IEDs out there, and you're like, everything's a fucking white Toyota Corolla hatchback,
Bro,
you
I'm
know?
in the sky looking for the
I
same
I
damn
know.
white SUV. And I'm like,
Uh,
there's one, there's one, there's
yeah.
one, and they're just like, follow it. And so I'm following the same car for fucking 6 hours, like, and they don't do anything. And you're just like, okay, well, we have to go home now.
Oh,
Bye. Like,
that's gotta be mentally fucking draining. All right, so you
yeah,
guys
don't
you
worry. We're looking for the same white SUV.
yeah,
It's not our fault. It's Intel's fault
I
for
know.
sure.
I'm just giving you shit.
Yeah. No, I'm telling you, we're staring at the same SUV for 6 hours,
And then
following it around everywhere it
nothing
goes.
ends up coming from it. That happens all the time. But
Yeah, I get it.
October of '09, you guys deploy or you're getting ready to deploy. What's
Yeah,
going on there?
I think that's the year we deployed.
Okay. And where'd you go?
Uh, so half my unit went to Iraq and half my unit went to Afghanistan. I went to Afghanistan.
Okay.
I went to initially to Camp Leatherneck, and then my unit actually split up, and some of them went to various other like forward operating bases, and then I got sent to Dwyer. Um, yeah.
Okay.
Uh,
So how
Eventually, I got
long?
sent back to Leatherneck to do like some mission commander stuff, and then moved a flight line from Leatherneck down to Dwyer to join the rest of my unit. But
Okay.
yeah,
S-
that's pretty much where I was in Helmand
s-
Province.
Gotcha. So you start off at Leatherneck, and how long do you think that you're there for before you know okay, well, what's that initial thought then when you're getting into country? Like you're in Afghanistan, you see Leatherneck, like what kind of shit's going through your head?
Uh, I feel like I and now at this point I have no concept of time. I have no idea how long it took us to get there, how many airports we were in, how many floors I slept on, like and then we get in a country. I don't know. It was like it just like I feel like I just like checked into another like part of my brain, just like I don't know, compartmentalized everything. Like it was just different, but like Leatherneck was it looked nothing like I had ever seen before. I don't really know how to describe the experience actually. Like it wasn't like it was a scary experience. Like
Yeah, no, I'm
it felt like weirdly civilized and like quite a bit luxury uh for what I was expecting, I
Mhm.
guess. Um but it was still really different. Like, HESCO barrier walls, which I have never seen before. But there was still like a chow hall, and there was roads, and there was like people driving around in cars.
Yeah.
Like they were shitty cars, but they were cars.
Yeah,
Um,
it's not totally like uncivilized, it's not like living in port like, there's did they I don't know. No, they had port shit or I don't know, at least where we were at. We were on like the edge of the Leatherneck when we got there. They kind of tossed us to the winds and that's where we had to wait until we went out to wherever we
yeah.
were operating out of. But
Yep,
did
yep, yep.
now
Same.
did you before you got sent to Dwyer, like how much time did you spend on Leatherneck?
Couple days.
Oh, okay. So it wasn't like you had started operating out of. All right. So they send you down to Dwyer after a couple of days. You convoy down or you fly down there?
We flew.
Okay. So you fly down to Dwyer. What kind of shit are they telling you? Like, hey, you're going down there to set this up, or you're
Nothing.
gonna nothing. So you have no idea what the fuck you're doing in Afghanistan. Okay.
What kind of shit are they telling you? Not a goddamn thing.
All right. So
You're
you
just
get off.
going. You're just like, all right.
Yeah, you get off the helo or whatever at
And they're
Dwyer,
like,
and you're
go this way. And you're like, oh, okay.
like, all right, there's where you're sleeping, there's the chow hall, and there's the showers. Um,
Yeah, you
what?
got it.
Okay, well then, what gets you involved into the operational status then? Well, how does that happen?
So, what's interesting is I don't even really remember doing turnover getting into country, but I damn sure remember turnover getting out. Um, But yeah, so when we first got there, we were staying in some tents that were like pretty close to the flight lane we flew in on. But there was another flight line, a UAV flight line that was like a ways away from the manned aircraft, probably like a mile walk away from the manned aircraft flight line. And so it took us a couple of days to figure out like where our tents were actually going to be, and then be introduced to our flight line. And then I think we got a briefing, we got given our flight schedule, and then it was pretty much just like show up on your flight schedule. And I'm pretty sure my first flight schedule was like I had to be there for pre-flight at 11 p.m.
Okay, so you got the night shift.
Yeah, I was fucking boot as shit. Like, of course I
Okay.
did.
So, I would think that being a drone operator at nighttime would be, a pretty eventful time in the sense of like finding people and placing IEDs or some shit like that. And I'm just speculating. You and I did not get into, what kind of shit that you were observing and what you were doing, but
Oh my God, night crew is so boring.
was it really?
Uh, the first of all,
So,
no one is awake in Afghanistan at 11 p.m. Like
so
everyone is sleeping. Like if you're lucky if you see a dog running around. So a lot of like what I did initially was like scanning villages for nighttime activity for exactly what you're saying, right? We're scanning for like somebody planting a bomb in the middle of the night. But the reality is that I don't think I ever saw anything exhilarating on a night. Like literally, maybe if I saw a pack of wild, like we'd be like, "Oh, it's the pack of wild dogs!" Like this is so exciting. Like there's nothing
really,
going on in Afghanistan in the middle of the night. At
where's
least
your where's
none
your
of the
AO
dogs.
that you guys are running through and doing your missions in?
It was. I mean, it was all Helmand Province. But like
So
wherever they
you,
told us.
so give me like your a typical, run through of what that shift is like. So you get there for your pre-flight at 11 and take me through a little bit of the stuff that you're doing to prep yourself and get into this position.
My God, it was so long ago. Um, So you get in, you do like the mission briefing, like Intel tells you like what the fuck you're doing, what's going on, what you're supposed to be looking for, or whatever. There's like this whole like mission briefing kind of like template that we all have to go through with the flight crew, which includes like Intel, two UAV operators and a mission commander. And then you go do pre-flight with the bird, which is where we link up with like air maintenance, who pretty much have like done all the work on the bird and all that stuff. We have a pre-flight checklist, we go through it, and then, we get in the ground control station, which is like this little box that sits on the back of a Humvee. And honestly, we just like push a button and it takes off.
Okay.
And then we execute the mission from there.
So what's the mission that they tell you, like they give you an area that you're supposed to patrol and observe. And you have to be obviously aware of the other aircraft that's in that area, right? Or in that flight pattern.
Also, no, I mean, as an operator, like our job is not to be like we don't know what other aircraft are out there. Like we
Okay.
get told from the mission commander like what altitude to fly. We get told from Intel like what our task is, like where our AO is that we're scanning or whatever. Um yeah, the mission commander is more so responsible for like coordinating with air traffic control, other aircrafts, whatever altitude we're supposed to be flying at, all that stuff.
Okay.
So
So
that's
pretty you say that you're on night shift, you're the boot. Nothing really eventful is happening other than a pack of wild dogs.
not at night. No, yeah.
Okay.
Luckily, I wasn't on night shift my entire deployment. I probably would not be doing so well.
Yeah.
Uh,
I'm sure that that's got to pay a toll mentally, just sitting there doing that monotonous, mundane bullshit for the
yeah.
entire deployment. So what then makes the shift? You're doing this for how long? Couple months, couple
I
weeks?
don't know. Time is like doesn't exist on deployment. Um, I have no idea how long I'm doing it, but I eventually get taken off of night shift. Um, shit's popping during the day. Like I remember this I don't know what I'm supposed to get into, but like I literally remember the first person that we killed. I wasn't even on shift, and like
Okay, let's back up for 1 second. I never even asked you to specify what type of drone that you're flying so people know what you're
it's the
doing.
Shadow RQ-7 Bravo, like 14-foot wingspan.
Okay, and your mission is obviously, reconnaissance and surveillance and target acquisition. Are you equipped with weapons on the Shadow?
No, when I was in the Marine Corps, the Marine Corps didn't own any UAVs that had any weaponized systems. The best we had laser capabilities, so we could laser guide a bomb in from another aircraft. Is
Okay.
pretty much like how we were able to like support in dropping bombs, is we would just like target spot, and then someone else would have to like fly in, drop the bomb, fly out. So it
Right.
actually protected manned aircraft because, they don't have to like be on station or tracking the target or even spotting the target. Like that was our job.
Okay. So you get swapped. Now you're on days and shit's popping off. Do you remember well, yeah, you were just about to talk about that, the first person that you guys had killed. How did that event play out?
I'm like a little ashamed about it. I remember one of the women who I had trained was on shift, and she was flying with another of the flight instructors, because I was a flight instructor at this point. And I remember watching the video feed. We had found a guy who was following one of our patrols, and he had some type of like rocket launcher that he had on his back, and we could clearly see him on the video feed, like following our patrols. Because a lot of what we did like during the daytime is we would follow patrols. Or actually we wouldn't really follow them. We would actually scan the road ahead of them to see if we saw like anybody lining up for like to shoot at them, or like anything in the road, like looking for hot spots. Because like freshly dug dirt has a different heat signature than other dirt. So like a lot of times we were scanning like a patrol's route ahead of them. And on this particular day, we had spotted someone following our patrol. And he had a rocket launcher, and he, for whatever reason, I don't know, but he wasn't firing. So he was following them, and he would like get down on one knee and put the rocket launcher up, and then I guess like chicken out, and then like put it down, and then like follow them a little more. And like I just like we called in close air support, and the patrol was far enough away that like we felt like we could take them out. And we were responsible for maintaining positive ID, because about like ROE, like sometimes you can't take a target out unless you have positive ID. So like that a lot of times in engagements was our role, was to maintain PID. So yeah, there's this guy, he's following us, and we call in close air support. Helicopter comes in, we laser guide, he drops a bomb, this guy gets taken out. I remember seeing him with the top half of his body crawling across the road, and like blood leaves a heat signature. So like you could see, like I can literally in this moment picture like the bomb being dropped, the splash, and then like seeing part of his body like trying to crawl across the road before just like not moving after it. And I remember, and this is where the like shame and guilt comes in, is like I wasn't my flight, but one of my students was there, and she's passed, like she doesn't need an instructor there. But she was like, I don't want to see this. I don't want to do this. Like, and I was like, get the fuck back in there. Like, this is what you're trained for. Like, get the fuck in there. Like, I just remember being like so harsh with her. Like I was like, get the fuck back in there. Like you have to watch this. I want you to watch this. Like this is your fucking job, And like in retrospect, I was like, oh yeah, way to make that girl go through some trauma. Like I could have
Well,
just let her step out.
you're right. You could have just let her step out, but if she steps out that time, then that takes away from her capabilities to be able to be in that position again. And what the fuck are you supposed to do every single time? You've got this Marine that this is her job, and she knows this at this point. Like you're the whole workup, whatever you're preparing for, all these flight instructions and all the things that you're doing, this is what the job is. And in that moment in time and whatever throughout the rest of the deployment, if you let her cave then, what are you, you've got to worry about that responsibility for the rest of the deployment. And I don't know how that works for you guys in the sense of being able to replace people or have somebody that can fill those shoes and how quickly that comes into play. But I think that obviously being a Marine, that you were and in a leadership position as well. As an NCO too, you've got to establish that understanding of what your fucking job and what your responsibilities are. So I wouldn't hold that too hard against yourself. Like you join the fucking Marine Corps, what do you expect? We're in combat. Do
Yeah.
you remember specifically like the units that you were supporting or like providing Overwatch for? Like at this point in time, like the AO that you in or that you're in, are you guys in, Sangin or like somewhere in the Southern Helmand? Are you in Nowzad? Where are you guys at?
I feel like I've honestly like blocked a lot of that out of my memory. And I feel bad about that because um there was a lot of emotional experiences, like when a patrol would lose a guy or take fire or whatever. We were watching the same patrols day over day. And so at one point it was like really, really meaningful for me. But at this point, I think due to trauma, like I can't, I just like
Yeah.
blacked a lot of it
No,
out.
that well, and we'll get to this too, but this is stuff that initially when you and I had spoken that you didn't really want to um touch on for obvious reasons, but you had a little bit of an experience and a more recent journey that you've taken that kind of opened you up to be able to talk about that. And I'm thankful that you're willing to do this because you never know like the kind of position that somebody else is in with not reliving the trauma, but being able to get past like, and I always say like I'm not a mental health professional. I've partaken quite a few different programs and things that I've done and the guys and gals that have gone before, the people that I've talked to about opening up about the experiences that you've been a part of and being able to, not just cope with it, but live with it and move past it in a way where like you recognize that it's there, but it's not something that controls your life in the way that you're, um, I don't know, reacting to situations. Like um, yeah, I think that the last thing that I would want to do is make somebody feel like the stories that they're sharing and the things that they're talking about is like making them relive these negative things that they've tried to push past. So for you to like open up and share those things with me, for obviously other people to hear at some point. I really appreciate that, because that's a difficult thing. But also I told you the reason why I want you to talk about these things and open up about them for other people to hear is because there's a different side. It's not just guys that are on the ground and gals that are on the ground that are experiencing that combat. Like trauma comes in many different forms. So you sitting back and you're watching a patrol of Marines or a patrol of soldiers and they're stepping on IEDs or they're taking gunshot, wounds and all this chaos and you're in a position where you're observing, right? And you're doing what you can in the sense of being able to spot, the enemy threat or possible IEDs and laser targets, for effective cast. But um,
Or
some
tracking down motherfuckers after like
yeah,
contact,
after yeah, yeah.
because they shoot and run. Like they're just like blah 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 blah, and then they take off, and you're like, Well, we
Yeah.
were also tracking them down. Like we could track them through a cornfield, and if we could get them to where they like landed, like if we could track them all the way back to where they live, we would just bomb that building.
Okay. And when you got switched to this day shift, or not, well, switched to this alternate shift where you're seeing this more kinetic environment, what's the op tempo like in terms of how long that you're sitting behind the controls? You know, like do you have, it's hot and heavy and you're just fucking flying this drone around constantly, no?
No, I think you know, they're generally speaking, no. Like it was more few and far between. Like I when people are like, "Oh my God, UAVs, it's so exciting." I'm like, "No, it's like being a glorified mall cop. Like you're just staring at a screen for hours and hours and hours." I'm not saying that like shit didn't happen while we did it, but like honestly, like most of what we did was like following a white SUV. Like for hours that did nothing. Or like looking for a guy with a beard at the bazaar. And you're just like, "Are you kidding me right now?"
Yeah.
Like
Well, what kind of like it on these systems, is there like any type of like facial recognition? I don't know like how no. So it's just you're like you get what white hot, black hot, and then like I don't know like a
yeah, we
regular
like,
plain camera view.
well, it looks like TV pretty
T oh
much.
yeah,
Like,
okay, okay. We had just talked about like obviously following pointless vehicles or whatever. Not at the time maybe thinking that they're significant, but you're spending hours doing this. Um
yeah.
how often would you say that you guys are, experiencing things that are I don't want to say like where you're
You see?
involved, yeah, well, involved in it where you guys are coordinating fire and like observing for platoons or squads or whatever while they're, on the ground getting after it.
I feel like not a majority of the time. The moments that like it was hot and heavy were really memorable for me. Um, but I feel like most of what I did was really boring.
Okay, well, how about this? What is going through your head while you're watching these things unfold? Like in the position that you're in, what's going through your mind as the stuff's all playing out in front of you?
Some things like if we followed someone after like contact, like I just remember like I really just didn't want to lose them because the second they go off screen, we lose PID and then we can't do anything.
Right, because it's like changes from the sense of you constantly tracking them from engagement to where they're going, and then they lose, that line of sight or the positive ID, then you're starting from square one again.
Yeah. Or like I remember like seeing a patrol take contact and then one of the guys stepped on an IED and the like the the messages we were getting back was we're missing someone, you need to find them. Um just like in instances like that, it was like panic, like we're missing someone. And I don't know these guys, right? Like I'm not on the ground with them. I'm not walking patrol with them. Yeah, I'm following the same guys every day. Um and I'm talking to the same like people on a computer every day in their unit, but I'm talking to their intel guys, but I'm still following the same guys. And like I think, like when you can't find somebody or when like somebody gets really hurt, um there's still a strong sense of responsibility for them, like, because it's my job, like it's my job to make sure that like people are safe, and that if anybody's like fucking with the guys on the ground, that I can find them. Um, and I like I remember like it. I guess I would say like it was impactful. Like I remember when someone when the patrol I was watching, like they took contact. We were looking for the people who had just shot at them. They're like running through the woods, or woods. It was like cornfields or something. Um, and I just remember like the messages I'm getting back, like, we're missing someone, we can't find someone, we're missing someone, you need to find them, where are they? And then like, and just like getting these urgent messages, like, you're not doing your job, what the hell is wrong with you? Like, you need to find this person, blah blah blah. And me being like, I think I found them. And it was literally just a heat spot. And I was like, I think this is them. And they like sent someone to check it out, and it was just like a pile of bones. Like it wasn't a person. But it was who they were looking for. Uh and like that's shitty, you know? Like I
Yeah.
wasn't on the ground. I didn't know the person. So I can't imagine how like the guys on the ground actually felt, to like lose one of their own, or if any of them, I don't think any of them saw it, because what they were saying is like, you need to find this person, you need to find this person right now. We don't know where one of our guys are. And for me to be like, I think this is them, like how fucking shitty. Like
Yeah, and you're the one that's like telling them where they can find the body of
whatever's
whoever it
left.
remains.
Like
Yeah.
I don't know. Like I wasn't the one who had to go like to the like to me it was like, this is a heat signature of something that shouldn't be here. Uh so I mean I remember that, and I remember like as soon as they like confirmed that that was the person they were looking for, like just like and I feel like a little bit of a bitch saying this, but like throwing off my headset, like the fuck, like this shit's fucked up. Like, um, and so like if I had that much of an emotional experience, like I just like I can't even imagine what it was like for everybody who was down there.
Yeah. But it's like these alternate perspectives, people experiencing the same thing, but just different points of view. And it
Yeah.
all carries weight in a different way. And to be able to move forward from that, and this isn't like, you see this and like, okay, I'm, off the job, like you're having to continue with follow-on missions, and even throughout that day, you're right back in the saddle, getting right back to it. So you go through this deployment, you've got now you've gotten your feet wet, if you will, in the sense of how you guys are operating. You get sent back up to Leatherneck, right? Like you got to stand up a different part of your unit now.
Well, so I'll just say this about UAV operators on like my last like little experience that I had there. Uh I tell people like yeah, I never left the wire, but I got to watch it on TV.
Yeah.
Like, because UAV feed is just like watching TV. I mean, it's a little further away, right? But like I just like there's a little part of me that like cringes when they're like, well, did you go outside the wire? Like when I got my PTSD assessment when I got back, they like wanted to know if I left the wire, and that was the criteria for PTSD. And it's like, no, I didn't leave the wire. But there was a lot of other traumatic shit that happened to me in Afghanistan, that some of it had to do with war and some of it didn't. Um, but like I think one of my like main concerns, like not main concerns, but like something I think about is like, what about the UAV operators or like the intel guys who are watching UAV feeds who don't even leave the states? and they don't rate care now because they never had a combat deployment. And I know someone in the Air Force who went into UAVs because she wanted to be like me. And I'm like, I'm so sorry, because now every day she watches UAV feed overseas. She's intel, she's stationed in Maryland, and she'll never rate the benefits that I get because she hasn't ever left the States.
Yeah, it's kind of wild if you think about it. Same experiences, just one's in a foreign country and the other one's on home soil, but you're conducting same type of missions. I did not know that actually. I figured that, like I know I'm guilty of this, of saying things like, it's like they're playing a fucking video game. They never left the wire. Um, it's like they get to sit back and watch as everything gets fucked up, and but obviously it's very closed-minded and like uneducated things to say, especially after speaking with you about it. Like you're the only drone operator that I know, and witnessing things like that. Obviously, you see, you'll be in the COC and you see shit from the GBOSS system, or like the blimp feed or whatever. You get like that same understanding of it, but still that you're at like a forward operating base, you're at a patrol base or something that's got one on like a fucking, the MRAP one that goes up. I appreciate you sharing your, obviously that perspective, because it's something that people need to know. The sacrifices that, may not be physically in the sense of you're outside patrolling in the heat or the cold with the weight on your back or carrying a machine gun
Yeah,
and
it's
shit.
not the same. And I
Yeah.
would never ever say it's the same. Like, it's not the same at all, but it's also not nothing, you know?
Yeah, no, I agree. I totally agree. And it's something people need to be aware of, and especially guys that are like myself, just infantry dudes that don't take that into consideration all the time. I'm sure that there's guys out there that are like, man, I always respect the drone operators. And it's not that I don't respect people in that position. It's just you have that chip on your shoulder.
For sure.
And I've talked about like trying my best to remove that. I'm glad that we're able to talk about this stuff because it gives me a better insight. And I know if it's giving me a better insight, it's going to give a lot of other people a better insight about what goes on and how you're exposed to trauma in that aspect.
Yeah.
It,
Well, I mean, like, here's the thing, right? Like, you earned that chip, right? Like, you earned it. You know, you were out there. You were outside the wire. You were carrying your shit. You're fucking taking contact. Like, you're kicking in doors, taking names, whatever. Like, eating shit and liking it. Like, you did that. Like, I never did that. Like you earned that chip. Like, you have a right to feel some type of way about your experience. And honestly, like, in
so do
some ways,
you.
like,
So do
you
you.
got the shit end of the stick compared to like someone like me, like, I did get to stay on base in Afghanistan, and like I had my own other challenges, but I never faced anything like you did.
Yeah, well, I wanted to ask you too, because you said that you had some of your, and if it's something that, you don't want to, you, you
No,
said
I'll
that
talk about it. It's
the
fine.
trauma, there's like other things that like played a factor in like some of the negative experiences that you had on deployment that weren't related to combat or, to war. Um, can you fill us in on those?
Yeah, for sure. So, I remember these are luxury problems when it comes to deployment, right? Like, you're outside the wire, you're fucking in the fucking shit, and I'm on base complaining about my problems at the chow hall, right? But I remember, like, I had an Afghani National Army person come up to me, and I had like taken a bunch of shit from chow hall. Like, I had like just gotten off shift, like I was exhausted, like I was just trying to catch like evening chow before, I don't know, I went to the gym or something, some fucking first world problem in a third world world. Like, uh and this motherfucker told me to put my food back. This Afghani National Army officer came up to me in the chow hall to tell me to put some of my food back because there was other men who needed to eat. I damn near almost shot him on the spot.
Yeah, I
Like,
was gonna say, do you have a rifle or a pistol that you could
of
just
course I
fucking,
have a
yeah,
rifle. Like,
yeah.
I have a rifle and a fully loaded magazine, like, several knives in my pocket. Like, like, I remember I just like screamed at him. I was like, I don't know who the fuck you think you are. You're on our base, motherfucker. Like,
Yeah.
and it's like, as as much opposition as I had felt from like male Marines, especially like infantry Marines, in that moment when it was me and this other ANA officer, I knew the whole chow hall had my back. Like,
Yeah,
you know, but I
definitely.
was like, get the fuck out of my face. Like, who do you think you are? You're on our base, motherfucker. Like, and he just turned around and walked away. But, I know like in a chow hall full of primarily men, every single one of them turned around and was about ready to fight. But like, but it was dumb shit. Like honestly, like it was dumb shit. Like being in on the base in the gym on base again, first world problems in a third world situation. But like having somebody come up to me and just grab my boob and walk away, like
What?
that happened to me
Seriously?
twice.
No shit.
Yeah, yes, like just like dumb shit like that. Like
Like another like service member, like another Marine?
once was another Marine who just like came up to me and just like elbowed me in the boob. I'm like, what did that do? And then the person who actually grabbed me was ANA.
No shit. That's
Yeah, but it's
yeah,
like
I
dumb
mean
shit like that. Like just like
it's dumb shit, but it's also crossing a boundary of, personal space. And again, I can't speak
it's
because
actually
I've
sexual
never
assault is
yes,
what
yeah,
it is.
I've never
Like
been in that position before. So
it's just casual sexual assault where like everybody just kind of looks away. Like or like I was followed into the bathroom by somebody who worked on base, like a TCN, a third country national who like worked on base. Just like one night I like got up and I like went into we had like there was like we had some porta potties, but then we if you walked a little further, they had like these little like tents
yeah,
that had
no,
bathrooms in them.
yeah, I know what you're talking about.
And so I like walked to the bathroom tent and was followed in by a guy. And the only thing I had on me was a knife. Like, and I was like, I'm about to stab this motherfucker. But I actually went back to the female tent and got another female, and we went and hunted this motherfucker down. And I was like, if I ever catch you in another bathroom again, I will slit your throat myself.
Oh yeah.
Like, and I was like, let me see your ID. Like I was gonna remember or do anything. I didn't know who I was gonna tell. Like, who was I gonna tell? But I was like, let me see your ID, motherfucker. Like, And
Yeah,
then
and
I like had my knife out, like threatening his life. Like, what? um, but other stuff like just even the way O3s treated me was I had people telling me that like they would never call me by my rank, and that I didn't earn the uniform that I wore. And
at this point in time, are you still a corporal or have you been promoted to sergeant?
I'm sorry, I'm a sergeant by now.
Okay, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I deployed as sergeant. Yeah.
Okay. So you're a
So
sergeant and you got dudes saying
I'll
that they're
never
not
call
going to
you by
address you by
by
your
your rank.
rank.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't rate the uniform you wear. I remember being told that. And
Yeah.
like, I worked hard for my EGA.
Yeah.
So to be told I didn't even rate the uniform I was wearing, I had one student who I remember he told my gunny he wouldn't I was a flight instructor and he wouldn't train with me. He didn't want to be trained by a
This
woman.
this is in Afghanistan.
No, this was actually before Afghanistan.
Oh, okay. So you got
Yeah.
some guy that said he's not going to get trained by a woman to fly UAVs. Oh, okay. Well,
Yeah. Luckily I had a really good chain of command, and my gunny was like, we don't care, you're getting put on the flight schedule. If you don't want to train with her, don't show up and you fail that ride. Like, all right.
damn, that's interesting to hear. Like obviously I'm not fucking stupid and I know problems like this obviously happen. Um, never have I been one to participate because like I told you before, I've never operated or been around really female Marines. Obviously I've seen them and but never really had the time of day to engage with them. Um,
Yeah. Did you stare at female Marines when you were in, like you had never
uh
seen one before?
Ye I stared at them because I really hadn't been seeing any women at all. So it was like, okay, this is a lot better than what I'm normally used to looking. It wasn't because I was in awe of them being a female Marine. It was in the awe. It was in awe in the sense that there was a female. around us. I mean, that's what it was in awe. And not be, it
It
was
made
like,
me so uncomfortable.
oh, I'm sure. I mean, it's like at that, especially, well, I remember one time specific, it was we had the PX truck come, and come hopping out of the fucking PX truck as this cute little Lance Corporal, and every fucking dude that was standing there was just like,
Yes.
gawking at her, staring at her. Um,
Yeah.
and every dude thinks
Real
that he's
life.
like gonna
It
have
really
like the
happened.
look or like the, maybe she'll see that. Like, oh, I don't
No, it was just like
fucking
that. It was
know,
every memory
dude.
like,
Like, yeah, like maybe she's gonna notice me and think I'm better looking than any of the other guys here, and like I'm gonna, I don't know. I couldn't tell you what goes through the mind of a, well, I could, but
yeah,
whatever.
don't, that's not podcast
Yeah,
worthy. But
no,
I can tell you, I remember I was waiting in line for something at Dwyer, and a bunch of grunts had just rolled in, and they were all like zombies. And I just remember being like, what the fuck are you all looking at? Did I forget to put clothes on today? Like, what the fuck? And they're all just like,
yeah, well, I mean, at least you're at, you've got the ability to give it out, and not just like,
well,
some people are in positions where obviously they don't want to create any waves, and it seems like you're definitely somebody that
believe
did
me.
not mind creating waves.
Yeah.
Um,
I was
so
a really angry Marine. Like
I,
I
I
was
mean, I don't
really
know many.
angry.
I know one guy, and if anybody hears his name, they'll know exactly. His name's Earl Pettis, and he's an infantry dude, but just the nicest. I'm pretty sure he's an officer now. I'm pretty sure he went to become an officer, but a grunt, really knowledgeable, great guy, athlete, just like family dude, loved his wife and kids, and just like a gentleman all around. It was very cordial and just a respectable human being, but that's probably the only one I can think of out of the hundreds of grunts, thousands of grunts that I
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, I
But
was angry. I was super angry. Like I was angry, I was aggressive. I wasn't really happy. I honestly, like, I was like the biggest bitch in the Marine Corps, and like anybody who worked with me, especially if they were junior to me, like,
they did
I've
not
talked to
enjoy
some of
their
them since
time.
we've been out, and I remember meeting up with one of them like a couple years, quite a few years after I got out, and he was just like, I don't understand. You were so different when you were in, and I was just angry. Like, I've told you this, but like, to be successful as a woman in the Marine Corps, you have to be twice as good, and even then, you're lucky if you're considered half as good. So
Yeah.
I was I was aggressively getting after success criteria, whether it was like PT or my job or whatever. Like, I just thought I had to be like the toughest bitch out there, and I had enough anger from my childhood to fuel me through 5 years of the Marine Corps, and god damn it, it did.
Yeah. So, you definitely have that fire, that flame for sure. Seems like you created some waves. You made sure people understood who was the boss, and with those waves you created, you didn't take shit from anybody, especially people that went out of their way to like do some stupid shit. So you're able to hold your own in that aspect. That deployment. Is there anything else that you can hit on from that deployment that's memorable in the sense of an impactful moment or something, a certain situation?
No, I don't think so, because I feel like, we could talk ourselves blue in the face about deployment, about service, about all that stuff. Like,
You're right.
I mean,
Well,
people people who are in, like, they all have their experiences. Obviously, mine's a little bit different.
Well,
But
I was more so asking in the sense because I know that you kind of from being like the flight commander, you had to go out and like establish some new procedures or SOPs or something. I know I remember you had said you went from Dwyer and you went back to Leatherneck and you had like set up an alternate flight line or something.
yeah, so at some point I left Dwyer, went back to Leatherneck. I started training on a different UAV, Scan Eagle, and I became a mission commander for Scan Eagle, and then I became a mission commander instructor. And like one of my missions while we were there was to move the Scan Eagle operation from Leatherneck down to Dwyer, where I had just come from. So I think, the crew there was like me, a master sergeant, and a lieutenant. And so as the sergeant, I did a good portion of like the heavy lifting with guidance from my master sergeant. And so yeah, I moved a flight line and operations from Dwyer down, or from Leatherneck down to Dwyer, and then like set up flight SOPs there, which I actually got a NAM for. So
Nice. So
yeah.
that's I mean, and that's the thing. It's like obviously not focusing on just like tell me your war stories, but like the things that you were able to do and show like that leadership capability. And obviously all that plays a factor into what comes down the road. And your ability to coordinate and communicate and go above and beyond. And you're obviously awarded for that. And the things that you do. That's an important thing and something obviously that you should be proud of as well. All those wins in whatever ways that they come to us, it all sets you up because you get rewarded, or not rewarded, but you get recognized for the hard work that you put in. It may be a piece of paper in a red folder and then like a $2.30 piece of cloth ribbon, but it's always good to be recognized for the things that you do because I know plenty of people that do those things and they never get recognized for it. So I'm glad that you have something to show for, um, you know, putting in the hard work. That's good. Seems like, obviously you had some leadership that respected and, cared for the things that you did. Um, so the deployment wraps up, so you're probably what, like sometime in the spring or whatever of 2010, maybe going into the summer of 2010, you
Mhm.
get back to the States. What, is it like a culture shock? Do you come to back to like, oh shit, like I'm not on this operational rotation now of like flights and sleep and flights and sleep and all this shit now. What's going through your head as you get back to the States and you're adjusting back to that regular schedule?
I've never hated Americans more in my entire life than when I got back from deployment.
Really?
Yes. I remember getting back to the States and I just was again angry. I was angry. Um, but I just like felt like civilians are so disconnected. They have no idea what's going on. They have no idea that we're at war. Like they have no idea the sacrifices that people are making. They're fat, they're lazy, they're ungrateful, they're complaining about the dumbest shit. Like I'm just so happy to have a refrigerator. Like
Yeah.
I'm like, "Oh my God, there's electricity and air conditioning and if I want food, I can go to a grocery store. Like I'm sleeping in a bed. Like, this is my level of life is so good, you
Okay,
know?
so hold on. This thought that you have about like how everybody's kind of a lazy and ungrateful or whatever. Is this back when you're like home on leave, or is this when you get back to 29 Palms and you're back in like where do you start to see this at?
Yeah, this is back when I was in 29 Bombs.
So you see the base staff or like the families or just like shitty Marines and people that are out of shape and whatever, just not
Yeah,
holding
just like,
standard.
sitting in the yucca Applebee's looking at these people who
Oh
are just
yeah.
like,
As you're drinking your dollar fucking margaritas and you're like, fuck these people.
yes,
Oh, the good
literally.
old Applebee's on what it was on 62, right? Applebee's, it was like
I think
down in
you were
Yucca
right.
Valley. It was on the right hand side as your head. I know,
Near
yeah,
the
many
Walmart.
many many times spent at that Applebee's.
Yeah.
The trek that you had to take just to get some fucking sit down food was ridiculous.
Yep.
Um, but so you see this, and do you think that it's deployment that kind of gave you this shift in your mindset or the way that you view people,
Yeah,
like
for sure.
yeah. So What is it that, like, you obviously have some pent up anger and some frustration and stress and whatever has come from the trauma that you've, witnessed and the things that you've been going through during the last like 6 or 7 months that you were on deployment. How are you dealing with that stuff?
Drinking.
Yeah, like a good Marine, just drinking it away. Does that cause anybody to say anything, or do you realize that you're kind of spiraling out of control, or how do you realize that?
So I don't know that I was necessarily spiraling out of control by Marine Corps standards. I definitely would not have fit in well with any civilians, but the tolerance for out of control in the Marine Corps is so, I don't know if it's high or low. um I was still able to make it to work and do my job, and so no one ever said anything to me.
Okay. Did it ever get to a point where it was a problem for you? Like, obviously getting to work, you're able to do that, but maybe the things that you're doing when you're drinking, or the way that you're interacting with people, or decisions that it's causing you to make because of your impaired judgment.
I mean, I was doing what all good Marines do, right? I was continuing to be angry, fighting people, I don't know, throwing shit, getting drunk and shooting shit, like, but no, I mean, it didn't like really interfere with my, like, no one, like, there was never any intervention, like I didn't get a DUI, like
Okay, okay.
anything like that.
So nothing outside the norm, you're just kind of like under the radar, getting fucked up, and not really causing attention, bringing attention to yourself. So this is like what, like probably year 3 or so, like heading on to year 4 that you've been in the Marine Corps. Does this time come
I guess
around
we're
where you're
we're
in?
around 4 going into 5.
Did you re-enlist at all, or did you? No? Okay, so you
Damn,
did
man.
5 years. Um, but you
I did
did.
5 years and I did the early out package. Like I couldn't wait to get out.
Okay. So, what's the things that the deciding factors then? You said that initially you wanted to utilize the Marine Corps as a stepping stone. What was like something, did you have reenlistment on your mind? Were you thinking about reenlistment or no?
I would say that reenlistment was on my mind because right before I got out, I got selected for staff. So, um, that of course brings up reenlistment, right? I'm getting promoted really fast. I'm good at my job. There's a clear career trajectory for me. Like, um, I know that like some of the next steps for me where I would be is like going to WTI, becoming a WTI instructor. Like, um, I was already selected for staff. Like I had good staff NCOs ahead of me who were in my corner who wanted to see me succeed. I had done things like, get NCO of the quarter, or I was, color sergeant. I was in the color guard. Like, um, yeah, reenlistment was definitely on my mind. And, when I got selected for staff, it was me and my MOS school roommate who got selected. We both got selected for staff at the same time. And we were slated to be the first female E6s ever promoted to E6 in our field. And so for me, like one of the things I was thinking about was, continuing to break the glass ceiling as a female, you know? Like to be the first E6, like 7314 E6 as a female, when there was plenty of people ahead of me who were men, that was significant to me. And the other thing that, had happened to me various times throughout my career is because I was one of the higher ranking females in my unit, oftentimes, and this happened in Afghanistan a lot, is if there was ever any issue with a female, sometimes their staff NCOs would come to me, or they would come to me and tell me like someone was fucking with them. And so there was a part of me that wanted to stay in because I knew that because I had picked up rank so quickly, like with rank comes a little bit of air cover. And some of these female Marines that were junior to me were just getting fucked with. Like being like I remember like a gunny came to me and was like, we were in Afghanistan, and he came to me and he's like, one of my Marines put makeup on and I need you to talk to her. And I was like, well, was it natural in appearance? And he was like, yes. And I was like, well, Gunny, she's not out of regs. I'm not going to go talk to her. Like, you know, it was just dumb shit like that. Like, you need to go yell at her. This is Afghanistan. She can't wear mascara. And I'm like, actually, she can, though. Like, it's within Marine Corps order. Like, we're weeks away from being relieved. Like, the girl has a little bit of hope about going home and put on fucking mascara today. Like, it's not against Marine Corps order. I'm not going to go talk to her. So it was just like dumb things like that, or like female Marines who would be harassed about their hair, but they were in regs. And, you know, their sergeant was yelling at them in formation every day. And they're coming to me like, what do I do? And I'm just like, well, what does the Marine Corps order say? Put the Marine Corps order in your pocket. And the next time he yells at you after formation, say, hey, Sergeant, can I talk to you? And then tell him that you're not out of regs and see what he says. And if it still is a problem, come back to me and I'll go talk to him, you know, like,
Yeah.
but it was like shit
It's
like
just
that
a
I just
monotonous
like,
bullshit that you're not like a part of, you don't want to be a part of it anymore and have to deal with the bullshit.
no, it wasn't that at all. That was the reason I would have stayed in, because female Marines didn't have anyone else to go to,
So you
because
wanted
men
to be an
just didn't
advocate.
care.
You want to be an advocate for the female Marines in your unit that you're around. Like, okay, I
Yeah.
gotcha.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I was the first one to run a squad around them if they're running slow. But like, on the other hand, if you know, if they're being called out and they're within regs, like, leave them alone.
Right.
You know?
Well, I think some people try to go out of their way to, if they're one upset at it, or they're just trying to cause a problem, they do stupid shit like that. Especially if you get a little bit of leadership and you want people to adhere to your guidelines and like the things that you want them to do, they go out of their way to try to, instill that mindset that they have, which obviously we know the Marine Corps order trumps some staff sergeant or a gunny that's upset about a female Marine's hair. Um,
Yeah.
so
But
you go
the
ahead.
real reason that I ended up deciding to get out is I remember going to see the base sergeant major at the time in 29 Palms. She was a female. And I was talking to her because I was going to some change of command that was like well outside of my unit, and I was like going as part of the color guard. And I just remember sitting across from her and she looked so worn. You know, she's a sergeant major, and like I could just see the years of stress like in her face. She just looked so aged. Like you could tell that the Marine Corps had been hard on her. And one of the things that I weighed was like I was on the fast track. Like, you know, I hadn't even hit 5 years and I was selected for staff. Like I was for sure on the fast track, like as fast could get. And like, and I didn't want to be her, you know, like I didn't want to be that age and that worn out in 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, whatever. Like I just didn't want to be that. And the other thing that I had working against me is my body was failing. And you know, I had broken both my hips. I was still in pain. Like I just muscled through the pain. Like it was just a part of my everyday. Like I struggled to keep strength in my hips, and I struggled to like, I blew out one of my knees and I had to get knee surgery like while I was in. And like the knee surgery actually made my knee worse. I had like fucked up my back, and like at one point I was getting like shots in my back because I couldn't lift my arm above my head. That's how like painful my back was. Like some days I couldn't turn my neck. And it was just like one of the things that I thought about was like, yes, I want to be an advocate for female Marines. Yes, I want to continue to break the glass ceiling, but my body is literally failing me. Like I have major injuries that are not getting better. And I just remember thinking like I have one body and that's it. And I have to live with that for the rest of my life. And I don't have to live with the Marine Corps for the rest of my life.
Right.
So it was a really difficult decision, and I'm surprised at that because my initial game plan was to go in, get a job skill, get out, make money. But once I got in, I drank so much of the Kool-Aid that I was like off the deep end in the Kool-Aid. But I had to get out. I had to get out like if I wanted to not have a hip replacement at 40 years old, I needed to get out. So,
That's a lot of people experience the body breakdown, but that's pretty quick in the sense of obviously you had some pre-existing injuries, not from, from boot camp, and you're pushing through the pain, and obviously that's just building throughout the time. And ultimately, I think you made a good decision, for yourself, especially where you're at now and the things that you're capable of doing. Because another 5 years, 10 years, who know how that would have been detrimental to your body. So,
and my mental health.
yeah, oh yeah, that is shit. That's obviously that too. But you make this decision to get out. You get that golden ticket, the good old DD 214. Um, what's your like, you're on your own now. How are you attacking this? What's your next step?
Well, I was insane in the Marine Corps and I was insane when I got out. I ran at 110 miles an hour and I'm probably at like 97 now. Uh, but so I got out, I wanted to get a job. I was in a relationship at the time, so me and my previous partner moved to like the Philly area. I was looking for a job. I looking for a job was a job to me. So I had spreadsheets, I had these numbers worked out. I needed to talk to this many recruiters to get to this many hiring managers, this many hiring managers to get this many offers, and this many offers to get like a job that I wanted. And I was like canvassing the area, going to every job fair. I had 3 versions of my resume. I had worked with a career coach. I was doing like mock interviews with people. I had an elevator speech. When I was going into job fairs, I made it my mission to talk to every single person that was there so that I could practice selling myself, even if I didn't want the job. So I hit the ground like running when
Yeah,
I got
for
out
real,
of
dude.
the Marine Corps. My EAS date was January 2012, and I met the recruiter who hired me in February, no, April 2012, and I started my first job in May 2012.
Yeah.
So like I got a job right away. I got like a big corporate job. I asked for like what I thought was a ridiculous amount of money. They said yes. I didn't want the job, but I remember thinking like I'm gonna take this job because I can quit. like,
So
and I just like
you already
wanted to
had
quit
that
a
planned
job,
out in your head.
you know?
I'm
Like,
sure I'm sure if they hear that they're gonna love knowing like, oh geez. But it's an opportunity that you take, and it sets you up for that next spot that you're gonna be in, and ultimately showing you what it is that you don't want to do, right?
well, yeah. Well, so I mean, I took that job and they have heard that story because actually I got really involved in the like veteran advocacy group within the company that I got hired for, and I started doing a lot of like veteran recruiting and work with the US Chamber of Commerce and Hire Our Heroes, and like helping other veterans get like either update their resume or do mock interviews, or sometimes part of like what helps a veteran get a job is like convincing them that they have the skills to do it, because like a veteran, especially like somebody who's like infantry or whatever, they're like, I can shoot guns, like I can be a cop. And it's like, no, actually, like you have like hard work ethic and discipline and leadership and decision making skills and like all of, and the ability to adapt and overcome and like learn things really quickly. And those are skills that your regular everyday college grad flat out doesn't have. So I was doing a lot of work with you know like in the veteran space like right after I got out. And did I like my job? No, I hated it. But I told myself that I would do it for a year. Actually, I originally thought I was going to quit, but then I reflected actually back on my Marine Corps experience, and I remember I hated probably the first year and a half that I was in. Like it was so shitty. Like just like being lower rank, like having all my freedoms like taken away in MOS school, having like evening formation and curfew, and like you couldn't have a car and you couldn't leave base and all this stuff. Like all my freedoms were stripped away, you know? So I hated the beginning of my Marine Corps career. So what I told myself was once I got this corporate job that I would give it a year, and if in a year I still hated it, I would leave. But just to give it time. Luckily, I didn't super love my job after that, but I was so involved in the veteran advocacy space that it gave me purpose. And purpose was something that I was really searching for, especially after the Marine Corps. Like, it's something that I feel like I had when I was in, and then I lost in a great sense, right? Like, and I would tell this story when I would talk about my experience about transitioning from the military into the corporate world, that, you know, at one point in my life, I was able to make decisions about whether or not people lived or died. And in the corporate world, like, I was in charge of font size.
Yeah.
And so it was really like diminishing to my capabilities and for sure my sense of purpose.
Okay, so you realize this, but obviously you're enjoying or feeling the purpose with advocating for the veterans and doing the things that you've done with them. Weren't you the VFW liaison for that company as well?
Well, so I was the VFW. No, it was American Legion membership chair.
Okay, okay.
So the company that I worked for was one of two companies, I believe, in the country that had a special exemption to have a corporate affiliation. So you had to be an employee with my previous company, which was Prudential, to be a member of that American Legion post, which worked out for me because I personally don't really jive with like VFW and American Legion post. Like when I go into like a VFW bar, like you might as well shoot me. Like I don't want to be in there. Like
Yeah.
I just like I also haven't had great experiences, you know, like I've walked in there with another Marine from where I live who I was friends with before we both went in. We went in there for his birthday. He wanted to go, and some guy was like, "Oh yeah, thank you for your service. Thank you for your service." And he was like, "Well, she's a Marine too." And he was like, "Yeah, I don't care. Thank you for your service." And I was just like, "I'm right fucking here." Like, you
Yeah.
know, like so it's not my sweet spot, but I was able to find like purpose within my within other veteran advocacy areas, like doing a lot of work with Hire Our Heroes. Like that was really meaningful for me because, you know, I think veterans are super capable, and I like really want them to be successful, and I believe that they can be. And sometimes it's a matter of them believing that they can be. And, you know, I have been successful transitioning out, and like the least I can do is pay it forward and help someone else be successful. And a lot of that is just like them realizing just how strong and capable they really are.
Yeah, if you can show them that, then you know that's people helping people. It's a powerful drug, that's for sure. You know, especially when you can see, and that's another important fact of what I like to do with this is show that um you can be successful after your time in service. Like that's really what it comes down to is
Hell yeah.
if you're gonna put in the work, and obviously if you set yourself up for failure in the sense of like what I kind of did when I first got out and it was just like I'm gonna party and do whatever and have no plan, then it takes a turn for the worse. And then you're the kind of person, well, I was the kind of person like blaming why I didn't have success on the fact that my Marine Corps, you know, or like I wasn't taking advantage of opportunities. I wasn't advocating for myself. I was expecting opportunities to come to me. And if you're going to be in a position where you're going to find success, it's unless you've got like some trust money style family, trust funds money style family, you're not you know, you don't have it made. So you got to make it for yourself. And that's
Mhm.
definitely what seems like you've been doing. Which, you know, after your time in corporate America, didn't you do a little traveling?
Hell yeah. So I did the corporate America thing for like 9 years. Um, you know, it's super cool. Like I totally doubled my salary like within the first 4 years of working in corporate America. You know, I started a mentorship program with my mentor, who's now my business partner. And you know, I did cool shit while I was there. Like the last job I had, I helped create the job description for it. I thought it was what I wanted, but it turns out that it wasn't. And I got really burnt out. And I'm very fortunate. Like, one of the greatest gifts I feel like the universe has given me in the last few years is I got laid off and I got a severance package, which was so beautiful because it meant that I was going to get paid for a considerable time for not having to go to work. And I took that opportunity to start traveling around the United States. I always had this dream of like seeing all 50 states. And so I had started that venture while I was still working because I was working remotely. So I had actually put all of my stuff in storage and started like Airbnb hopping around the United States.
Okay, so hold on.
And
Let me ask you. Obviously, I already know this answer, but why people would be like, "Oh, you're just traveling around the U.S.," which I mean isn't. I would much rather do that than anywhere else. But they'd be like, "Why didn't you go travel in Europe? Why didn't you go abroad and travel?"
so I felt really strongly that if I was going to invest my tourist dollars, I wanted it to be in my own economy first. And I wanted to know about my own country before I started exploring other countries. It just made sense to me. Like, if you're going to spend money, why not spend it here? You know?
Yeah.
Like why would I fund someone else's economy when I could fund our own? Like, either way, I'm going to spend my money. And so I felt really strongly that I needed to see all of the United States before I was willing to start investing my tourist dollars in someone else's economy.
Word, I agree. And because I just like being in America, I don't really want to go anywhere else. I can't take my guns with me.
Well, I mean, the rest of the world is beautiful, right? There's some really beautiful things. There's really beautiful people. I think we learn a lot by leaving our country because we're such an ethnocentric country that like we think our shit doesn't stink, and it actually does. There's like a lot of other ways that people live that are really beautiful. But I also feel like really well equipped to speak on how our country is and how our people are because I've seen all of it.
Yeah. So how did like obviously you're working remote and you start doing the Airbnb thing, but that changed, right?
Hell yeah, it did. And I feel like most people would be super sad when they got laid off, but I felt like I hit the freaking lottery. Like, I got like 7 months of severance, a bonus, my PTO paid out, 30 days paid leave. I was like, peace, motherfuckers. Like, I'm out of here. So all my stuff was already in storage. I was already like traveling around the country with like whatever would fit in my car. Meanwhile, like each town I was stopping in, I was getting rid of more and more and more stuff, becoming more and more of a minimalist. And yeah, once I got laid off, I just like disappeared into the woods. I was like, goodbye. Like, I don't need service, like no service, no shoes, no shirt, no problem. I'm out of here. Like, and that was actually really wonderful for me. That was like such a dream. And I spent, a good portion of time just like wandering around the United States, camping in the woods, like, going up mountain roads in my Camry, like, sleeping in a tent or like seeing the national parks or whatever like that. I was living like my dream life. What I will say though is like, while that was like such a high, there was also like a mental health low that was coming. I think we're probably all familiar with like the mental health low that comes after getting out when you like search for purpose and meaning in life and you like struggle through that, right? And so like when I was searching for purpose after getting out of the Marine Corps, I found it through like the veteran advocacy work that I started to do, not through my job, but like through helping other veterans. Like that's how I found purpose again. And so whatever, that kind of petered off and I was just doing my job and I was traveling around. I was starting to find purpose through traveling, but I remember like laying in Glacier National Park, which is beautiful. If you've never been, please go. It's one of my favorite national parks in the lower 48. And I was just like laying in this incredibly beautiful place. I had this dream life. I didn't have to worry about money. I wasn't working. Like I had everything I needed. I had literally created the life of my dreams. And I was so depressed, and I had no energy, and I was so burnt out. And it had been months since I had worked. Like, I thought it was the job that had burnt me out. But I just remember um like sitting there staring at the trees, and I like didn't have enough energy to get up and like go sit by the lake. Like, I couldn't even get out of my tent, and I was in so much physical pain that like I could barely do like more than like a 3 mile hike maybe, but I would be in pain through the entire thing. Like, I was doing a lot of my sightseeing by car because I was in so much pain, and I just remember thinking like, this isn't the life. Like, this isn't the life that I thought. So like, yes, it was this amazing experience, but I was like back in this place where I needed to find purpose, and I needed to focus on my health. Um and I needed to figure out like my mental health again. Um
So what was the you've taken this journey through the United States and you've traveled all these things and realized this, struggle that you've got going on with your mental health. Like what's this adventure like to better yourself in this aspect?
well, um so I had like some money in the bank, and I like decided that I was gonna continue with this goal of seeing all 50 states. Um, and when I got done with that, um, I moved to Austin, and there's a little bit of time that lapses where I'm just kind of like figuring out what to do. But one of the things that I did during that time was I applied for VA disability. I had a friend who was like, Kristin, do you know you limp every time you get up after sitting? And I was like, no, like, I'm fine. Like, it only hurts when I like hike more than like a mile or two. But he's like, no, actually you limp all the time. And I was like, oh, do I? Like, so he's a DAV rep, and I was at his house in Nevada. It was one of the places I was visiting. And he was like, before you leave here, we're going to put in your application. And I was like, okay, I really didn't want to do it. But so I got that put in the works, and that whole process took me almost 2 years is to get my like VA disability rating. But that afforded me a little bit more time to do things like focus on my health. And I would say that like since I got laid off, and for sure in the last like 6 months to a year, like, yes, I've been traveling, and it's been so beautiful because that's something that lights my soul on fire, and I think everybody should do that. But I also worked really hard to get my like VA disability all figured out and get into that system, which is a pain in the ass.
Yep.
And then the other thing is, I've worked really hard on like undoing the burnout that 9 years of corporate America and 5 years of the military before that like took the toll on me. And so it's interesting that you say, you took some time to fuck off after the military, and like it wasn't that great for you. And after 5 years in the military and 9 years in corporate America, I never took time off, and I felt like that was something that I needed to do because I had never given myself the chance to breathe.
Right.
So it's interesting, like, it didn't turn out that well for you, but like in retrospect, I was like, I've been working my ass off for a long time and like have never taken the time to rest. So that was part of what I needed to do, like while I was traveling, was rest. But then I also really needed to prioritize my health and my healing. And I felt really strongly that until I was able to get like my health under control, like nothing else in my life was really gonna materialize successfully.
Yeah, if you feel like shit, dude, you're not gonna produce the product that you need.
But it's not even about producing product. Like, I don't want to get lost in the production of like that's what makes it successful.
Well,
Like
I mean in a sense of like your ability to go out and do things. Like if you feel like shit, if your body hurts, if you're eating, if your diet's fucked up, if your sleep schedule's fucked up, all those things are gonna fall like, obviously that's a mental battle as well. And if you're not setting yourself up for those successes and health and mental well-being, it's going to make everything that you do fucked up.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And I have to say, like, as somebody who's been like such a go-getter and like, has overcome mental health issues like all my life, I started in an abusive home and had to overcome that, like went through like struggles, like mental health struggles in the military, like, I've had therapists, I've read books, like I've like done all the shit, and like here I was again, like climbing back out of that hole with no purpose. And so I say all that to say, like, I know veterans struggle with that a lot. And my experience is that it's not something you do once and then it's figured out. It's something you have to do again and again sometimes.
Yeah.
So there's some lucky people out there who just like find their purpose and that's it. And they're like, they ride off into a sunset on a white fucking horse and whatever. That's the end of that. But like for the rest of us, like it's something that has to occur again and again. And like you have to be willing, like, one, like recognize that like, hey, a bunch of other people are going through it, but also sometimes it's just time to do it again. Like sometimes it's just time to like figure out the mental health, figure out the physical health, and once again, like find something that drives you, find something that lights you on fire, find something that you find fun. Like, I had to get way back in touch with the like 5-year-old me who like once upon a time had hopes and dreams and like figure out what she liked because I didn't know anymore. Like I was so burnt out. And
Well,
that's kind of what I've been doing for probably the last 2 years.
and with that too, there's also things to aid through this process, right? Like there's different, obviously people will talk like medication and therapy and stuff like that, but you and I both know there's like alternate therapy types out there, specifically with like plant medicine and some of the newer up and coming studies that have been done in different programs that are out there now. Have you participated in any types of therapy or adventures in that aspect?
Yeah, well, so first of all, I've done a shit ton of therapy, which is a big part of why I am who I am today. So I'm just a general advocate for that as like a tool in people's toolboxes. But I very recently got into plant medicine, and it's something that's been on my radar for a little while. I feel like we're starting to see more and more information about, the effects of plant medicine on PTSD. And I'm very fortunate. I've done a lot of work on PTSD and on my mental health, in other avenues of therapy. So when I was introduced to the plant medicine world and I just took my first like guided plant healing journey, I guess there was meditation in there, on April 1st, and it was really profound for me. But there's other things too in my life that are really profound. Like, there's like a whole aspect of my like spiritual life. Like, I'm involved in yoga and I'm a yoga instructor and I'm a yoga student. And then also like I have a whole like mindset tribe that I regularly meet with. And so like these things compound on top of each other for me.
Fuck yeah,
Um,
they do.
so
Yeah.
when I took my plant medicine journey, it felt like there were like Lego blocks stacking on top of each other that fit really perfectly. And I would say for anybody who's like curious about it, like if you feel, I think this is where it comes really down to your intuition. Like if you feel called to it, like it may be a good next step. I can't advocate for everyone, but I can share that my experience was a super positive one. Like one of the things I was able to do in my journey was, I was just having a conversation with one of the guides, and she started asking me some questions, and one of the things she asked me about was my time in the military, and I was like immediately triggered, like I had a visceral reaction to it. And she's like, if you don't want to talk about it, we don't have to. And I was like, no, like this is the reason why I'm here. Like I want to heal. And what I discovered was that I carried a lot of like trauma from the military and my experience, like I carried it in my stomach, because when she asked me, like I was immediately nauseous. Like I just didn't want to talk about it. And I probably wouldn't have gotten into any of the things about Afghanistan if I hadn't already gone through this journey. But what I did with her is like, I had a whole experience where I identified like the sensations I was having in my body. I sent like love and healing to that part of my body. And then I was able to like, it felt like there was a huge weight on me that I like lifted off of me and was able to give to her. And she like sent it up to the light. And I know that's super like woo woo shit, but like, but oh my God, I felt like 1,000 pounds had been lifted off of me.
Yeah,
Like the fact
until
that I
you've
could just like give that to someone else and didn't have to carry it anymore, and like to come out of that and like to be impacted so much so that I'm willing to have a conversation with you, not how many days later, like a conversation that I probably would have been like, please skip over that, if it had been a month ago.
yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah, I'm a huge advocate for it if people feel called to it. But I think it's really important that people need to make that decision for themselves.
right.
It's not something I plan to shy away from. Like you are aware that I'm beginning a project to create a website for a whole bunch of primarily like nonprofit organizations, like a resource library or like a website, kind of like a reference point
Directory.
or like
Yeah.
a bridge to help the organizations that are helping veterans get connected to the veterans that they want to serve in a faster way, because there's just like there's nowhere out there that just like has a list of nonprofits out there that you can tap into. And I say all this to say, like, one of the reasons why I'm super comfortable talking about my experience with psychedelics is I know of at least one organization out there that does psychedelic therapy for veterans with PTSD, and like I don't want to shy away from putting them on my website. Like I feel like they belong there, that they're helpful, and for the people who that resonates with, I think it has the ability to be a super powerful healing tool.
I totally agree. I think there's been nothing but positive feedback on that subject. Myself personally, I've never gone through any guided experiences, but individually, recreationally, did I find some, I don't want to say healing, but some insight on myself and some of the things that I was dealing with, for sure. That opens the doorway to wanting to understand that stuff. I think that it's helpful, when you've got a professional that is there to one, guide you through dosage and, all that stuff, but, in the sense of releasing some of those things and the way that you talk about that weight being lifted off of you, like being, having done psychedelics before, I know what you're talking about. I'm familiar with what you're saying. And for people that wouldn't, they think that that's some like weird witchcraft shit or like some hippie voodoo, I don't know, whatever way they want to coin it. But there is a lot of positivity that comes from that, and it helps with problems with addiction, problems with stress, anxiety, depression, the post-traumatic stress, that's all obviously encompassing systems, symptoms to post-traumatic stress. But it's definitely something that's on a lot more people's radar now, and I think that that's a positive thing, because it's not that you're going out and utilizing drugs, as people will say. It's an alternate form of therapy where, right, you have to be accepting to that, or open-minded that that could be something for you, or obviously you're gonna have a bad time.
Yeah,
um
I agree with you. You definitely have to be open-minded. You really have to be like you I would say the word that I carried into my journey was surrender. Like you have to be willing to surrender to a lot of possibility. And one of those possibilities is healing. Like you have to be open to the possibility of healing being a very real thing that is achievable, because it is.
yeah, no, it is. And there's alternate ways of getting there. And you and I talking about this, being able to put an alternate perspective on things, and some might change somebody's mindset to be open to doing that, because you hear a lot of these organizations that are specifically focused on that. They orient their services towards a certain group of individuals that served in the military. And not that there's anything wrong with that whatsoever. They have the funds allocated specifically for those guys. They're like making the headway. But I
Mhm.
think it should be more available, knowing how much it costs and the amount of money that we're putting into different programs and organizations and stuff. I think that there can be something that can be done to bridge the gap. Um, but with your nonprofit, or well, not your nonprofit, the business that you're starting, to be able to um, find those nonprofits, to be able to give those resources or the ability for people to take advantage of opportunities like that. And obviously not just, the different forms of healing, but outdoor things, family events, organizations that can get involved with helping you with X, Y, and Z. There's a lot of
Mhm.
specifics out there. So having the ability to find the right group and the right organization to support, in lieu of them supporting the veterans that are trying to get help, or access to whatever it may be. I think that's like an awesome thing that needs to be done. So you're on something there, getting that figured out.
Yeah,
Um,
I definitely want to like as I start listing various organizations, like one of our visions is that, we've created this advisory board, and we want the advisory board, and of course, like, my network. So I'll tap into you too to just like give me feedback on these various organizations so that we can like vet them in some way, but like, make sure that they're reputable, that they have a good mission, that they're treating people well. And
100%.
then the other thing that we're gonna, differentiate as we list these organizations on our website is, we want to differentiate whether or not there's any special programs for women, because I'm not gonna lie, there's a lot of orgs out there, and they're just boys clubs, and that's cool and all, and like some people need that, but like I don't need that. I'm not really here to sign up to be a part of another bro club. I did that for 5 years. I don't need to do it again. Like, I don't need to be with the CrossFit bros who just got out of the gym. Like, that's not the veterans organization that's going to serve me. They can do their thing out there, but like, somebody who is a woman like needs to know like what organizations are actually friendly towards them. But kind of along the lines of what you were saying, there's a whole plethora of veterans out there who never deployed, and they're just like not even eligible for some of these programs or what have you like that. To be honest with you, it's one of the reasons why I've gotten involved specifically with an org that I'm a regional coordinator for, PB Abate.
Yeah.
Part of the reason why I like that organization is because you don't have to have been to combat to be part of that organization, and they drop a lot of that military bullshit at the door. Like, at that with that organization, it's so much more about like connecting and community and finding purpose and having conversations around that. In the events that I've been to, I've never felt like it was just a boys club. It felt more like a bunch of professionals getting together, doing fun things, trying to have a good time, trying to connect, and like even some networking going on. So shout out to PB Abate. I have to at least do
Yeah.
that.
No, PB
Um
about that, dude. That's how you and I got connected, from somebody that's involved with PB Abate. I've been to a couple different events with them, obviously in the Chicagoland area. And that's how, when I had reached out and said, hey, if you know any veterans that are interested in sharing their stories, and Chris had reached out to you and said, hey, there's this weird guy with a beard out there looking to talk to people about their time in service. Would you be interested? And here we are.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I
so
served with Chris. And Chris is a regional coordinator for PB Bate as well.
yeah.
So he like pulled me all the way in and was like, "Hey, come help us out over here." And like one of the reasons why it's like interesting, like things come full circle, right? Like, being laid off from my job and trying to find purpose again, and here I am back involved in the veteran advocacy space. It's something that just calls me, and I feel like my call to the veteran advocacy space is a little bit different now than it was, when I first got out of the military. Like one of the things that I'm really looking to influence in the veteran space now is, I want these organizations that have good missions out there to be connected with the veterans that they serve. I also want to make sure that like if an organization is interested in it, that they are like holding space for and appealing to like female veterans, because sometimes they don't even know that they're excluding us, right? Like
Right.
sometimes they are super inclusive and they're super cool when you show up to their events, and they're not this like rah rah boys club, like whatever. But you get to their website and it's nothing but a bunch of dudes. And you're just like, is this for me? Like,
Yeah.
I don't really know, you know?
Well,
Or,
that's just a fuck up on their like marketing or like digital media coordinator or whatever, like
but they don't, but the thing is like,
they don't even think about that being an issue. And they don't think about it being something that's off-putting to, a woman that may go and look at that and be like,
yeah,
well,
because
if
they're
it's just a
a
bunch of
dude and they take
fucking
the picture, they're like, this
yeah,
is cool. Isn't this a great picture? And I'm
uh,
like,
yeah,
I don't know.
everybody's got a beard and they all have a Semper Fi tattoo on the lower back, like it's
Yeah,
yeah. But
yeah.
well,
So
it's a good mindset, and you're bringing a little bit of change to something, and not, I shouldn't say change, an alternate way
oh, for
to
sure. I'm
address
trying to
the
bring change. I'm trying to
yeah,
be the
but
change I want to see.
yeah, but an alternate way of handling the issues that are going on. So yeah, it's change. You are looking to enact some change. We've been going at it for a hot minute, you and I, and it's easy. You being open about these things that you're going through, and obviously the transition, and the journey that you've gone on to get where you're at now, and the fact that you've been so drawn to veteran advocacy shows that you leaving the Marine Corps and feeling that way of like not like, oh, I'm getting out, I'm not going to be there to advocate for these women. Like, in a sense, seems like you're coming full circle back to that to be able to do that in the veteran space. So, that's good that you've got that mission still pressing forward.
Mhm.
Um, I do want to ask you, like two last questions. Um, this one's a little interesting. Answer it how you will, but you being the one person. Okay, anyways, do you think that drones are ethical in warfare? Like,
Hell yeah.
utilizing them? Yeah, okay. So, yeah, some people would say like, is it wrong? Like, in the sense of like, I don't know, being sneaky or what I don't know, like them planting IEDs and like hitting us where like we can't see it, and and this is just an alternate way of thinking about it, in the sense of where we're just utilizing these unmanned drones in the sky to be able to drop bombs on people without having a visual PID. Maybe you see something different, or whatever, just like playing devil's advocate and thinking of an alternate perspective of somebody that would view utilizing a drone to be like unethical in a combat situation. So, I just want to ask you that.
F them. Just kidding.
There you go. You're like,
uh,
let's see that laser on your forehead. It's like a 500-pound GBU right
First of
behind it.
all, who said we're dropping bombs without PID?
Yeah, I
You
know
know what
you
I'm
you
saying? Like,
explained that you did, but I am there's miscommunication, there's errors, there's lapse. Maybe you guys pick something up that you think is what it is, and I'm just saying there's an alternate way of thinking of it.
here's the thing. We're going to drop bombs when we want to drop bombs, regardless of whether or not there's a man or not a man in the aircraft. And the thing is that UAVs are saving like money and lives, because if it's not a UAV doing the work, then it's going to be some other manned aircraft. Like we have aircraft in our military. So if it's not a UAV, it's gonna be a manned aircraft. And
Yeah.
either way, the bomb's getting dropped. So
And it's not like it's all left to like AI or something, or like some fucking computer is deciphering whether or not to drop the bomb. You still have a human making that ultimate decision. All right, so it's a fuck yeah from Kristen, that drones are ethical
I
in
never
combat.
considered, like, I would consider, like, there's so many other things I would consider unethical
Yeah,
before
no,
like
you're right,
UAV versus
but
not,
right,
like
right. But I'm just I'm just trying to think of a
yeah.
fresh question and a different way of bringing it
Yeah,
out
no,
there.
I think it's better.
Yeah. And this last one is, it may be more difficult. But taking your time, growing up, obviously seeing 9/11, the whole GWAT starting, and obviously seeing the culminating events that took place in August of 2001. Um, if you could pick one word to describe the GWAT, what would that word be?
Two came to mind.
Don't
Fucked
hold
up.
back on us. Yeah, fuck.
Fucked up was what came to mind immediately. Like what? What might be if I had to pick one word? What? What was that? Uh yeah. That's it. That's all I got.
All right, I mean, no further explanation. I
What?
think obviously from like your experiences and you know, your time over there and how it all played a role in where you're at today. Um, it's fucked up, but the things that you're doing to, I guess, make a difference is, try to enact that change and like see things that you may think are fucked up and not the right way, and you're able to do something about it now. Maybe more so than back then. But is there any words of advice you can leave for our listeners that may be in a spot right now where they're unsure of what they're doing, whether it may be with work or a fucking decision to take a road trip or a relationship, like if they're down in the dumps or they're struggling with something, like what could be the word of a ray of sunlight, if you will.
um, I would just say do it. Like take the trip, quit the job, like buy the plane ticket, like whatever it is, it's like scratching you in the back of your mind, like just do it. Because it will all work out. And as long as you put one foot in front of the other, I think I would just remind people that like we're all finding purpose again and again. And like it's okay if you don't have some, but just like borrow someone else's for a little while, like do the things that like spark joy in your life. Um, and like if your mental health is just like really down in the dumps, just like start with small change. Like small change compounds over time. And also just hang on, like sometimes it gets really dark and hang on because it does get better. And like for people who feel stuck, like I always try to remind people like we're not trees. Like we're not rooted down. Like we can get up and move. Like we can change things. Like I think one of the things that like I'm probably gonna work on in this next like phase of my life is, I really want to inspire people to like find their passion projects and explore the world and like take a little bit more adventure in their life. Like, military people are some of the most courageous people I've ever met in my entire life. Like bravery is not what you do when things are easy. Bravery is what you do when things are hard. And if you've been in the military, you've done a lot of things that are hard. And I think when we get out, we forget how brave and how courageous we really are. Like we did so much shit while we were in, shit that was hard physically, mentally, like we made a lot of decisions and did a lot of things in the face of what other people would have feared. And then we get out and we fear like the outside world and we get overwhelmed by it. We forget how powerful we are. So I would just like, that would be like my closing note is like never forget how powerful, how courageous, how brave, how smart, how strong of a leader you are. Like, because all of that shit can carry into the rest of your life, even on the days when it seems the darkest. And like, and that's it. And like if anybody ever forgets that, like feel free to connect with me because I will be happy to remind you how powerful you are.
For sure. Well, obviously I'll be tagging you when I get this up on Instagram and everything. And if somebody wants to reach out to you, they'll know how to find you. And I don't think that could have been said better, to be honest with you. You should write that down, put it on a little note card or some shit, and pass them around to people. When you go to PB Abate events, even if it's the last little bit. But hey, that's great insight, especially if you're somebody that's as well traveled as you are and the experiences that you've had, the places that you've been, and like where you are now, from that whole journey. So I really can't express like how appreciative I am, and you are the first woman that I have had on the podcast. So, that'll go down in history when we make it big, and there's more than 100 people watching the video. But
Cool.
uh Kristin, I thank you for your time, your service, and your dedication to continuing to advocate for veterans. So it's fucking badass.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate what you do, and I don't know. I just hope someone found it helpful.
They will, and all in good time, somebody will hear the message, and what we're doing is hopefully gonna change, if not save somebody's life. So, again, thank you, and we'll be in touch. We'll talk soon. All right.
All right.
All right, thank you. And guys, that was Kristin Zamichieli, United States Marine, on the Pressing Forward podcast. Take care, guys.